Alright, looks like I'm almost fucking ready on YouTube finally. YouTube! Alright. Stony Progressive Live on YouTube. Stony Progressive Live on Twitch. Everybody's joining us. Thank you, everybody, for hopping on. This is going to be for those of you who are joining later because nobody watches right away. Those of you who are joining later, I usually stream around midnight. It's been 11 Eastern lately. That'd be 8 p.m. Pacific. Doing shows about politics, about news, catching up on the week, and trying to do it in a chill, stony way. So grab your pipes, grab your bongs, grab your edibles. I will be. Little gummies. Can't really chew yet, so I got them cut into quarter bits. Gonna be covering the White House a lot. I want to do a lot of the Jen Psaki farewell tour. So we got 3 segments from her. That'll be taking about the first, probably take us right up until midnight. And then we got the week in review. We're going to cut that in half with some rallies and protest news, of course. But to start the day out, we will be doing Jen Psaki a lot. While we wait for some joiners, I was going to throw some of my random drunk stories into the night. Um, Try to wait for some people to join us. But I wanted to have at least somebody here before I did that because there's some fantastic stories. And usually I'm a little drunk or stoned before I tell them, so we'll get a few more edibles in before I start doing those stories. Alright, where else we got here? We've got everybody going. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Nobody on YouTube yet. Is YouTube live? Let me check my stream. Looks like we're good. Alright, alright. Well, guess let's chill out to some Jen while we wait for some people to join. I'm gonna tell stories when people are around. Stories are too good to miss to tell to nobody. While the moderators join, I'm a little early. I'm still wasn't scheduled to 11 tonight. So while the moderators join, while everybody hops on here, gonna catch up on my edibles. I'm also on chatting. Need to switch over to politics. All right. All right, we got everything updated, I think. Jesus. Mother and Joseph. We got everything updated, everything good to go. I got my bowl packed. Got my cherry punch all ready to and set it for the night. Um, if you're on YouTube, thanks for going through the age verification they're making you do now, or whatever that is. They keep sending me emails. If you're on Twitch, please follow. We're a few halfway to affiliate, so that's pretty awesome. Thank you for following. Thanks for joining. And let's get started with a bowl and some Jen. The Jen farewell tour. 3 clips tonight of the last 3 episodes.
Happy Friday. Is there more to say on this historic day? Okay. So, wanted to first start by outlining
Oh, she's so boring.
our
I'm
security
sorry.
assistance to Ukraine. And there's been a lot of good questions about this, and we thought this would be a helpful in the building and on the complex, which is about 2,000 people. I would not survive this job without Amanda Finney. You probably would all not have received all the help you have received about a range of things.
I think it was yesterday or today she got asked like, why are you saying goodbye to all these people? Are you really leaving like this week? And she's like, I mean, I'm just trying to, give credit where credit's due and da da da. So yeah, she has been kissing everybody around her ass, and it's kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of rich people around her that are going to be good job connections in the future, but she has been plugging everybody in her staff. It's pretty funny.
Without Amanda Finney, she is smart, sassy, level-headed, stable. She's remarkable, and we may all work for her one day in some capacity. I certainly may, but I am very grateful to her. So just wanted to shout that out. And her yellow suit is very joyful for a joyful day. Okay, with that, it's a Friday.
Right, thanks so much. I've got a couple things.
Sure.
First on this, the missile attack at this train station, does the administration think that Russia might have intentionally targeted the train station, knowing that there would be a lot of civilians there?
Well, what we've seen over the course of the last 6 weeks or more than that has been what the president himself has characterized as war crimes, which is the
Cheers,
intentional
guys.
targeting of
War
civilians.
crimes.
This is yet another horrific atrocity committed by Russia.
Committed only by Russia. There's no war crimes currently happening by America. It's even illegal to think it. But yes, war is an atrocity. Sanctions are war. Sanctions are war crimes. So we are also committing war crimes. Both parties are evil. Both parties are to blame. When I say both parties, I mean Russia and the USA. When I say both parties, I mean Republicans and Democrats. When I say both parties, I mean both sides of war are usually to blame.
Striking civilians who are trying to evacuate and reach safety. Where we are now is we're going to support efforts to investigate this attack as we document Russia's actions, hold them accountable, and we will continue to surge security assistance and weapons deliveries to help Ukraine defend their country. Obviously, the targeting of civilians would certainly be a war crime, and we've already called a range of the actions we've seen to date a war crime, but we're going to be supporting efforts to investigate exactly what happened here.
Okay, changing topics. Senior administration officials have said publicly, gone on TV, suggesting it's possible the president could get COVID. I'm wondering, is the administration attempting to prepare the public for the possibility of the president getting the testing positive?
Well, what we're trying to do is be as transparent and direct with the American people as possible about the fact that while the president takes a range of protocols, we have a range of protocols in place here that are aligned and even beyond the CDC requirements. Those include, as we've outlined,
They drill. I mean, I know a lot of people in the White House are getting COVID at the moment, but they drill her on COVID for so long in these 3-day period. So many questions over COVID. And these are people that are getting like cold-like symptoms. So we're talking about COVID, but remember that this COVID is like more like just a general flu.
outlined here many times in the past. Testing before you see the president, testing before you travel with him, social distancing when possible. We believe we have the tools and protocol to address this point we are in the virus. But like anyone else, the president may at some point test positive for COVID. And while we have seen an increase in recent, I would just note, while we've seen an increase in cases around people, I should just say that some of us may know. I would also note that cases remain down 95% since the height of Omicron. That is fact, that is data, even as we've seen cases of people we know. But what is important for the American people to know is that he has taken a range of precautions, as we all have, but he's also taken steps like getting the second booster, as he did last week in public, and his doctors.
He always does it in public, huh? He's got to make sure he gets that shot in front of everybody every single time. It's kind of sus, kind of suspicious as fuck, right?
Are comfortable that he could continue to carry out his duties because of all these steps and precautions and protections he's taken. And we certainly, that's one of the reasons we encourage the rest of the American public to do the same. Go ahead.
If this is the first time that we've heard White House officials sort of describe it as a certain possibility that the president could get COVID, are you saying that you think it's more possible now, given sort of the little outbreak that we're seeing in D.C. right now?
No, we're just saying that it is a possibility. Again, cases are down 95% across the country since the height of Omicron. While cases are up in Washington, D.C., they're also far below the height of the cases and where they were in Omicron. But it is also the case that despite all of the precautions we take, and even with the president being double boosted, he could still test positive for COVID, just as many people in the White House have, many people in the press corps have. That is a possibility, and we want to be transparent with the American public about that.
by our rough count here, you have at least 18 politicians and people close to the president who've now tested positive this week. I mean, you reiterated all the extra precautions that you are taking to try and keep him safe, masking and testing protocols. Do you think that you consider maybe cutting down some of the big indoor events or scaling back any, changing sort of your tactic with some of these events?
Well, clearly we did the event, the historic event today outside. That was in part to ensure that we could have a huge number of people on the South Lawn celebrating the confirmation of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. But also, we know that having events outside is better for safety protocols. There's no question about that. But what's important for the American people to know and understand is that because of all the steps we've taken, because the president is double boosted, because of, obviously he has access to the best healthcare in the world, but his doctors have assessed that these are risks that can be taken. We risk assess just like everybody out in the country, and it's important for him to be able to continue his presidential duties now, and even if he tests positive in the future. Just like Americans out there in the country are taking their kids to school, they go to the grocery store, maybe they're making a decision to go to dinner. This is a time where we are certainly living with the virus, but we have a range of tools at our disposal to do that. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. A couple of quick questions on oil and then one on the French election. We have some reporting showing that the administration is considering easing sanctions to allow some oil imports from Venezuela as a way to replace banned energy shipments from Russia. Can you talk a little bit about any such considerations?
I'm not aware of that being under consideration.
Okay.
I'm not aware of that. And that face right there. I'm not aware of that. And then that face. That's the face you see right when she says that. Oh, they don't tell her that kind of shit. Come on, guys. And if they did tell her that kind of shit, they would tell her not to talk about it. So they don't tell her that kind of shit because they don't want her to talk about it. I think it's pretty basic, but it's funny when they ask.
Okay. At the moment, is it going to perhaps be considered for going forward?
It has not been, so I'm not aware of it being under consideration.
Okay. And one other one on when Dmitry was in India.
Oh, the interpreter. Oh, it's so perfect. Sometimes I just watch the interpreter and I can kind of lose track of the actual White House press briefing because the interpreter can be some of the funniest bits. And again, guys, if you're following me on YouTube, thank you so much. If you happen to have the Twitch app on your phone or the Twitch app on your computer or whatever, please watch me on Twitch instead. I am much closer to monetization on Twitch than I am on YouTube. I am, I believe, 55% of the way on Twitch, but only 2% of the way on YouTube. So YouTube is essentially never going to happen. I might be able to actually pay for my streams by my streams on Twitch at some point. So thank you for joining me on Twitch if you are. And thank you for joining me either way. So thanks for hanging out. Let's keep getting stoned and keep watching some news.
He delivered this warning to India to not raise purchases of Russian oil. And we were wondering if perhaps sanctions along similar lines are being considered for other nations, asking them to keep purchases of Russian oil only limited to previous levels and perhaps not.
First, I wouldn't characterize it as a warning, nor did we at the time. He went and had a constructive conversation and made clear that while it's the decision of each individual country, including India, to determine whether they're going to import Russian oil, it is only 1 to 2% of their imports. About 10% of their imports is from the United States. And so he conveyed, of course, they should abide by sanctions, which are not related to that decision, but also we would be here to help them diversify and move towards even reducing further beyond the 1 to 2%.
Is that decision perhaps being relayed also to other countries, asking them to perhaps follow the same guidelines?
Well, we conveyed every country to abide by sanctions. And we've conveyed to a range of European countries, as you know, and as we've talked about, that as they work to diversify their energy sources, that we are here to assist in those efforts. And there are a range of steps we've taken, including efforts on LNG. I mean, that's natural gas, of course, but efforts on LNG and moving some resources from Asia and other places, and ensuring that there are options to, for any country that wants to diversify their energy sources.
Okay, and one on the French elections.
Sure.
Are you watching the French elections coming up this Sunday, perhaps with any concerns, especially with the rise of Le Pen, who is a far-right candidate running against Macron?
Why would it matter? Corporations own everybody. It's such a fucking stupid question. This is the kind of shit that when you look at the kind of questions they ask, you got to be like, okay, are you watching the French elections? It's like, of course we're watching the French elections. France, England, Australia, America, we're all in a line. Like, of course they're watching the French elections. But it doesn't... Far right, far left in those elections, it's all corporate owned. It's not like they're having a revolution there. Like,
We are certainly watching the elections, but I don't have any prediction of what the outcome will be. And once there is an outcome, I'm sure we will speak to it. Go ahead.
Understanding it's a fluid situation, but the atrocities in Bucha serve as an accelerant towards the latest sanctions package, the coordination between...
That we
the
announced
sides.
2 days
Yes.
ago? Yes.
Is there any sense that the strike that we saw this morning will also accelerate talks on additional sanctions between the coordinated allies?
Well, I would say just to go back to a couple of days ago, that obviously the sanctions package we announced on Wednesdays with the biggest bank in Russia, Sberbank, certainly that was augmented as a result.
Again, sanctions are war. Sanctions are a form of war, and it usually doesn't hurt the oligarchs. So these sanctions that we're doing, we're not hurting. Like literally, like there wasn't it Biden that got caught saying that, like, yeah, we're trying to do this to turn the Russian people against him. Like, this doesn't actually do anything to their way of life. It just hurts the everyday people, and then those everyday people have to rise up, and that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that those everyday people rise up and fight Putin. But that's not the right way to go about things. That's, we're putting war, we're basically battling their poor people and hoping that their poor people battle their rich people. It's not the right way.
Of the atrocities that we were seeing in Bucha. And what we have done to date, and we will continue to do, is look at, unfortunately, the continued atrocities that we're seeing in the country and assess how that's going to impact sanctions, consequences, and obviously additional security assistance. So that's how we've been evaluating and working with our allies to date. And I'm certain, given the video footage we've seen on airwaves across the world and photos, that this will be a part of the discussion that our national security officials are having with their counterparts moving forward.
Okay, on the S-300, it's been fairly apparent for the last several weeks that was a process that you guys were engaged in.
Yeah.
I know you are deliberately ambiguous as to some of the other processes that may be taking place, but is it fair to say that there are multiple other tracks that are similarly far down the line for other weapon systems, or how can you characterize how far along you are compared to where you are now with the S-300 on other systems?
So, well, one, I mean, part of our objective here, and the S-300s are an example of that, is to see that we can get defensive equipment that Ukrainians are trained on and that we know it can be effective moved to Ukraine. So we are, of course, grateful to Slovakia, and we work closely with Slovakia to also meet their defense needs. And part of our considerations here, as we're looking at the list of requests that the Ukrainians have, is what do we have access to here in the United States? What military equipment do we have access to? There are systems we may not have access to, or we may not even have those systems. So how can we work with countries around the world, like Slovakia, to meet those needs? So there are a range of those conversations happening with our partners and allies at the same time. I will tell you that...
I will tell you not a damn thing, because that's what I'm paid to do. And I'm going to go to MSNBC and keep sprouting that non-propaganda bullshit.
Often it is the preference of these partners and allies not to be public about these conversations, and at times it is the preference of the Ukrainians, and we certainly respect that.
That's one final one. It's been a pretty historic 24 hours
Yeah.
For the history of the Supreme Court, for the country. We've seen the president speak publicly. Can you talk about, give any color in terms of what he's been like behind the scenes, delivering on a campaign pledge, for
Yeah.
the first African-American woman on the court, how he's been with staff, with the
Sure.
justice, all of that?
Sure. I'm going to try not to ugly cry about this day, which we were all doing on the South Lawn. Look, I was with the president before he went out. I was there on time. I didn't run out, as you would have seen. I was with him before when he was doing his final review of his remarks, and what he was reflecting on is, and you saw some of this in his speech, were the number of people, whether it is people who work at the White House, people who are part of his everyday, stewards or others, who have commented to him how significant this moment is, and how, in a place where you are just trying to make it through every day, and every day is history in many ways. History can be heartbreaking, and many days it has been. History can be exhausting, and many days it has been, and history can be joyful. And today was a joyful day in history, and that is certainly how the president was. You saw his granddaughter, Naomi, who he talked about in the speech, come out. She was there also for a brief greet with Justice Jackson beforehand, and he made an effort to also introduce the new Associate Justice to some members of his close staff who just were inspired by the significance of today as well. So I would say there was a deep recognition of this moment of history, a joy in reaching it, and I think we've all been saying to each other in the hallways, no one can steal our sunshine today, because that's how everybody is feeling. Go ahead.
Can't steal my sunshine. Does she sing loud in her head right now too? Because I am. Can't steal my sunshine. I don't know. It's a good song, but it's a stupid thing to say in the freaking thing. I mean, I get it. Like, they're just trying to say that their administration has too big of a win for you guys' nitpicking to cut them down, and so that's what they're all bouncing around the things for. She's happy because she's probably going to be making like $10 million a year next year or in the next couple of years. Um, so she's going to be in that, that multiple big digit, big money range. So that's why she's happy. And she can try to tell us any other thing she wants to, but she is a bullshit artist. That is what she's paid to do. She's got her payday now.
To follow up on that, did the president spend any time with the Jackson family before the formal event or afterwards?
Well, I think as we confirmed, she signed her commission, or he signed her commission, and her family was with her for that. So it was briefly before he came out to do the remarks.
Okay, got it. And to follow up on a question from Katie earlier this week about other precautions that the president may or may not be taking, do you know if he is taking any monoclonal antibodies to help prevent catching COVID?
Well, Evusheld is for immunocompromised. That would be the preemptive step, and he's not immunocompromised, so he's not taking Evusheld.
So I don't know if they're trying to catch, like, is he taking zinc, vitamin K, vitamin D, vitamin C? There's a million things you can say here that would be acceptable. They're not trying, like, I think the way she's looking at it is like, you're trying to say ivermectin, or you're trying to say one of these things. I don't think that's what you're trying to catch you on. But our White House has never once came out and said you can be preemptive about this at all. Like, we've never admitted that, hey, you can be smart about this and be taking all these vitamins. It's like for some reason our White House isn't willing to say that health benefits will stop diseases a little bit. I'm not saying it's going to stop, it's not going to cure, but being up on these vitamins will help. It won't hurt. And I think that's the kind of thing she's asking, and she's just gonna shut her down. Like, are you trying to push towards that horse thing? I mean, look at her fucking. You could have just said, like, yeah, he is taking very good care of himself at the moment. He is being very health cautious, and that we think that's the best way for him to do that while also being socially distanced. Or, I mean, there's some way you could have answered this without being such a bitch. Oh, but that's what she is, right? And that's why I love watching her.
Is he taking any other medication that might help?
Like what?
Well, I don't actually know. That's a great question. Other than the booster, we've...
Yeah, other than keep getting stabbed. Anything else? Anything else at all? Like vitamin C, taking any, antibodies, monoclones, anything at all? Like that's important to know. But it's just gonna be standoffish.
heard other people taking other kinds of prophylactics to prevent it. Is he taking anything that you know of?
There are not other, this is why I asked, there are not other, Evusheld is obviously one that if you're immunocompromised, is something that's been approved and recommended. Since he does not categorize that way, he isn't taking it. But other than that, the precautions we're taking are, he obviously got the booster when he was eligible last week, and we take additional steps, including testing, socially distanced meetings when possible as well, in order to protect him as much as possible.
Thank you. And then just one more on something that Samantha Power shared.
Sure.
She said that Russian forces have killed at least...
I didn't realize, I was listening to this, I wasn't watching it earlier. I didn't realize the whole time she has her hand on her pregnant stomach. That's, that very, you kind of like have to call on her, like, she's that big. You have to call on her. She took the time to come in here. She's not going to be there for, I hope she gets a couple weeks maternity leave. Jesus. Do reporters get maternity leave? I mean, I know we don't in the service industry, but did reporters? That seems like the kind of thing they'd get maternity leave, right?
7 journalists in Ukraine in 6 weeks, and that Putin soldiers are killing journalists at an unprecedented rate. Is there any intelligence, any information that Putin is targeting journalists? And do you have any warning that you're sharing with American journalists covering the war?
Well, one, we value the role that American journalists and journalists from around the world, that felt like a direction somewhere, have played in bringing bringing to light for a lot of people in this country this war, what's happening, the devastation, the horrors. It has a direct impact on people's emotional response in the United States. There's no question about that. We recognize the war of journalists in war zones, of course, and value it. And as you all know, we also work very closely with leaders of news organizations to ensure that they have up-to-date information to keep members of their media organizations safe. It is still a war zone, an active war zone, and we're still conveying that Americans should not be there, right, including journalists. In terms of specific targeting, we knew from the beginning, and we've talked publicly about this, of course, that President Putin and the Russian military was going to target, was intending to target, or could target civilians and others, including journalists could be part of that. But I don't have any new intelligence or anything beyond that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Is there a carve-out in CDC regulations for COVID for the vice president?
Tell me more, Peter. I'm sure this is going somewhere. Let's
Well,
see.
you know,
What do you got for me on
Oh.
Friday?
the
Tell me more, Peter. Well, I'm sure this is going somewhere, and it goes somewhere. Like, he definitely has a direction he wants to direct this into. But his leading ass questions, like, both the Fox people are so fucking condescending. Like, I guess you have to be a prick to work there, but still, man, like, I like, I like their questions because they're such dicks about it, and they're obviously, like, it's obviously opposition. Like, it's like, obviously, we're the controlled opposition.
CDC says for people exposed to COVID, up to date on their COVID-19 vaccinations, do not go to places where you are unable to wear a well-fitting mask. So why is she here at the White House today, giving the new Supreme Court justice a big hug with no mask?
You mean when she gave her a hug outside?
Yes.
Oh, look at that face. That's the Jen we're gonna miss right there. That is the Jen we are gonna miss. You mean when they were outside?
She was outside.
Does the CDC say that people who are close contact can give people hugs outside?
We know, Peter, that outside you can benefit significantly being outside. That's why we had the event outside today. I will tell you that the vice president has been wearing a mask inside. When there was a private greet, they were all wearing masks before they went
Wasn't
up.
wearing a mask
Get-
yesterday
get her.
at the Senate?
Get him!
She was.
Get him! Attack! Get him! Oh, she's gonna miss this. When I say that, she's gonna sleep better at night not having to do this on a regular basis. Oh, it's fun stuff though.
Playing an important role in confirming or overseeing the confirmation of the first black woman to the Supreme Court. The vast majority, as was on camera, Peter,
public health
as was on camera. Let me
carve-out
finish
for
my
that.
answer here, because Fox and others, I don't know actually that Fox carried it, but others did, saw that she was socially distanced from people for the vast majority of her time overseeing that confirmation yesterday.
So this is not a case of rules for thee, but not for VP.
In fact, the vice president wore a mask inside today when she.
Pretty funny that the Fox people would say that when literally the Trump family trounced around like they were the freaking Kennedys and shit. Like, oh, sorry. I hate both the oligarchs. I hate the left and the right oligarch. So yeah, it's a joke to me. Man, just. You know, it's like such a pretend thing that they're even the opposite. And it's like, you're going to be working for the other side soon. I get to attack you hard. Because she's going to be working for MSNBC, and we get to hate you soon. You don't even have to pretend to be civil soon, even though you all work for the same corporations.
She was both with the president, with her staff, other people. She was outside at the event. She was socially distanced for.
It's all just a stage. It's all just a play. They really all just want war. They really all just want record profits. GDP is, measured by the rich, not by the masses.
99.9% of the event today, and she had an emotional moment, which is understandable.
Okay, and one other topic. Following up on the smartphones that are being given to border crossers with technology so they can be tracked or so they can check in, is there any plan to give free smartphones to U.S. citizens that want them?
Should we not be tracking migrants who irregularly cross the border?
I'm asking if...
Or do you have an
seeing-
alternative suggestion for how they should be tracked?
I, unfortunately, have not been asked to make U.S. immigration...
Oh, he's going to make a policy question and then say, I don't have to make policies. Oh, look at his face. Look at his stupid face. It's a very punchable face, right? Like, you don't want to go off and punch the opposing side, but he's an instigator. He's like literally a journalist troll, which is why they send him here. They send him there to like start fights. They send him there to get a reaction. They hope to get that reaction for their little sound bits for Fox News. They don't actually do any journalism. They come in there hoping to get a reaction. So it's entertaining and frustrating at the same time. But as a political junkie, he has a very punchable face. And I'm the kind of person that's anti-violence. Let's talk it out. Let's not have any wars. Let's not have violence. Like, I am not for, I think violence is the lowest form of entertainment. But he has a very punchable face.
Policy, that's not
Today's your moment.
Well, it'd be great if anybody that wanted a free phone and a free monthly plan could get one. So is that going to be an offer for everybody or just people that walk into the country illegally?
So, again, now he is now saying everybody should get a free cell phone because we're offering it to immigrants who need, like, that came across the border and now need, like, a phone to, like, check in with their immigration status. And I don't know, it's some program he's making a fun of because we're giving cell phones to illegals so we can keep track of them. But just, dude. So shouldn't we have a socialist program where everybody gets a free cell phone? Just the leaps and bounds you go to ask your questions, man. Like, if we didn't waste so much time on journalism with this crap, maybe we could get a step forward. But this is the kind of stuff that gums up the works. This is the kind of stuff that takes way too much time. And I'm taking too much time even talking about it, so let's just...
Well, Peter, as when we talked about this the other day, what I noted to you is that we have a range of means of tracking individuals who irregularly migrate to the country in order to ensure that they are meeting their notice to appear obligations and that they are appearing in court when they should appear in court. Phones is one of them. There are also ankle devices and a range of tracking devices. 80% of individuals of non-citizens released at the border from DHS custody under prosecutorial discretion have either received a notice to appear or are still within the window to report. So yes, there's telephonic reporting. There is SmartLink, which enables participant monitoring via smartphone. There's the global positioning system. These are the range of means with modern technology that we monitor.
Last one on this. Does the president have any plans to figure out what the...
And the opposers always get like 5 questions where anybody else gets 2 to 3. And it's like, I'm getting, you don't like me. We don't get to talk that anything. And anytime every day they get asked, like almost 0 days do the right not get questioned, and they always get 5 where everybody else gets 2 or 3. Just one couple more. Just couple more.
For a major influx in migrants next month need by making his first ever trip to the border.
I have nothing to predict for you in terms of additional trips. The president will be traveling the country, but I don't have any more specifics for you at this point.
Just
Thanks
for
for the question.
earlier you guys told us via pool that the president was tested negative. That was today for
Yep.
clarity? Okay, so the cadence has clearly changed, right? We knew there was one on Wednesday, he was negative. Today's Friday, he tested negative. Just for keeping track of it, is it now 3 times a week, 2 times a week? Is there a way to...
His doctor makes an assessment on how many times he should be tested, and we do our best to provide that information to you as he's tested.
And aside from the time he spent with Ketanji Brown Jackson, her family, there was no, because there's precedent to this, there was no indoor reception, indoor ceremony that existed some kind the cameras didn't see before. Okay. Let me, if I can, during his remarks today, the president said something that was a bit striking. He was condemning some of the conservative Republicans and their criticisms of Judge Jackson when she was testifying recently. He said there was verbal abuse, the anger, the constant interruptions, those vile, baseless, vile assertions and accusations. Whew. Is that a preview of messaging that we're going to hear from the president heading into the midterms? Is that a message that the White House wants to deliver and will be repeating?
Gotta give the puppy treats when he comes out. Gotta give you treats, don't I? Don't I, bub? Always gotta stop for the dog. But that's all you get. Okay, bud. That's all you get.
I don't believe that the conduct of senators at a hearing is going to be central to the president's remarks when he's out traveling the country. But I think what he was speaking to on a historic day is that while Judge Jackson was the picture, now Justice Jackson, was the picture of dignity in her hearings, some others in the room decided to be the opposite. And he is somebody who has more experience overseeing Supreme Court hearings than anyone living. He has overseen them during Republican and Democratic presidents and expects a certain level of conduct, professionalism, and decorum. And that is not what we saw.
One-off for today, as opposed to like a central theme that we'll see in terms of contrast.
I would say
I've watched these all day today. No, I watched this one today. I watched yesterday's today. I think I watched Wednesday's live. Nope, I was on the road, so I watched Thursday's live. I watched Wednesdays and Fridays today. I'm not going to do all 3 of these in a row. We're going to break them up. I can't believe I was thinking about doing that.
say that
The farewell 2 will be spread out.
I think the American people can expect that he'll continue to talk when he's out in the country, for whatever reason, about how to bring down their costs, how to make sure that he is fighting for them and bringing them relief, and how he's going to get the COVID pandemic under control, less about the conduct of senators at a hearing.
Let me ask a very quick question then on cost, if I can. Right now, the cost of gas in this country on average is $4.14. Does the White House want a gas tax holiday?
It's going to be 18 cents. Is that really a big deal? No. Other things can be done. I've heard this question like 6 times over the past 2 weeks, and every time it's the same fucking answer.
It is certainly on the table, and certainly something we continue to consider. We have seen a number of states do that, and while it can have an impact, about 18 cents, I believe, if I remember correctly. One of the reasons why we're considering it.
She's literally said it 3 times in the last 15 days. Literally.
Our primary focus to date, as you all know, has been taking steps to increase supply and get more supply into the global marketplace. But it remains an option under consideration. Go ahead.
The UN today put out a report saying that global food prices in March reached a record high.
Yeah.
What is the U.S. doing, if anything, to mitigate possible additional increases here?
Here in the United States. Well, it is something that we are certainly watching very closely while we continue to believe that the impact will largely be in the Middle East and in Africa, I believe, in a lot of other parts of the world, less in the United States. We are continuing to work, our Department of Agriculture is continuing to work with farmers and suppliers about any needs we have here. And the President is continuing to work to bring down costs in a range of areas for the American people as we prepare for the impacts of this war.
Like opening up fertilizer from Russia, even though we said we were not going to allow any in, because we're funding the war if we trade with Russia. So yeah, we're still allowing fertilizer, which is weird that we're not making our own fertilizer, since fertilizer is made from leftover oil, which we make in Louisiana. Why not go ahead and make that too? But we like shipping shit all over the planet because that's fun.
It was pretty widely reported yesterday, prior to her COVID diagnosis, that Speaker Pelosi was planning a trip to Taiwan. Beijing reacted very negatively to that. Is the U.S., is the Biden administration comfortable if she were to do that, such a high-ranking U.S. official?
I think we understood her trip. I don't have any further comments on it. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. 2 questions for you. The first, today my colleagues in the UK reported that the Chancellor of the
Two questions. I haven't seen that guy in weeks. 2 questions. Move on. But Fox guy gets 4 or 5 every time. Same with the lady, 4 or 5 every time. No questions asked. No questions asked. Oh, no questions asked. I'm sorry. I amused myself.
Rishi Sunak had a U.S. green card, which he surrendered this past October. He's been an MP since 2015, and USCIS manual says that serving in a foreign government or standing for election in a foreign government is not compatible with lawful permanent resident status. Why was this not flagged earlier?
I would point you to the State Department or the Department of Homeland Security. I don't have any more comment from here.
I mean, is it a problem? Does the president see it as a problem that possible for someone to serve at a high level in a foreign government and maintain lawful permanent resident status in the U.S.? I mean, what if this were someone who was serving in the Russian Duma?
It wasn't. But I would also, again, point you to the portions of the government.
It wasn't. But also, I like that one. There were so many like little moments that I liked today that I couldn't, like, I was like, I'm going to pick out a few moments. So I watched the 2 days on 1.5. We're watching at 1.25 now because it's just unbearable to watch at 1. But there's so many moments that I was just like, oh, that was a good one. Oh, that was a good one. And I guess if I had like an editor, I'd have them just do like the little snaps or whatever. But it's her going a well week, and the other, whoever takes over for her is just not going to be as just brutal as this. Like, it's just, you love Sean Spicer. You knew it was going to be a step down for the next person. You got to love Jen. You know it's going to be a step down. It's just not going to be as fun. So we got to have fun while we can.
That oversee green cards and oversee, the status of documents. I'm happy to bump it for them as well and see if there's more we can provide to you.
Question. There's a death row inmate in Texas, Melissa Lucio. She's set to be executed.
And this is that drink mix. 10 milligrams on this bad boy. Definitely helps when I can't chew as much. Can't have the edibles, so it's good stuff.
Soon. Many experts believe her confession was coerced and is false. She has bipartisan support for clemency and support from the EU and many other foreign allies. Would the president consider asking Governor Abbott to intervene?
Well, you know the president's position and view on the death penalty, and there's an ongoing review at the Department of Justice at a federal level. This is obviously at a state level. I don't have anything to predict
Then a
beyond that.
follow-up. Given his commitment to police reform, would he consider asking the DOJ to prohibit police departments that receive federal funds from using the Reid technique for interrogations? It's considered to create a lot of false confessions.
Well, again, I know the Department of Justice has taken a number of steps, including on chokeholds and other actions that needed to be reformed in police departments across the country. I don't have anything to preview or predict in terms of additional steps. The president supports their efforts to do more. Many of them have talked about their desire to do more.
The same guy that said, we need to fund the cops, not defund them, we need to fund them. When, like, I'm sorry, the New York police have more funding than, like, what, like, I don't know, the next, like, what is it, like, it'd be 12th or 13th on national defense. The New York City police have as much as, like, the 12th or 13th city, or the country on national defense. That's how much funding they have.
And obviously, we are continuing to consider an executive order on police reform here, given there has been an inability of Congress to move forward. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. There's some pretty desperate images coming out of Shanghai right now, which is under lockdown for COVID. People begging for food and medicine. Is the White House monitoring that? Is there anything the U.S. can do to help the humanitarian situation there? And also on the supply chain front, is the administration aware of any further supply chain snags coming as a result of this, and how are you prepared to address them?
Sure. Well, first, on the first part of your question, the State Department is closely monitoring the situation. They are providing consistent updates of the situation on the ground, and will certainly assess with USAID and others if there's additional assistance that could be provided. On the supply chain component, what we know is that the port is continuing to operate normally, and where we're seeing the impacts, which still could have an impact over the course of time, of course, is factories, warehouses, and trucking, where we are seeing shutdowns within the region, which we know could cause delays, especially for air cargo as well. Because this is just happening, we don't have a prediction at this point on how that could impact bigger global supply chain issues. It depends on a lot of factors, how long, et cetera. But it is something we are closely monitoring, and it is something we will continue to work to address if it extends farther.
And there's one more housekeeping item. Do you have a time update on when the president might sign the trade preference bill on Russia that passed?
I don't, and I know you and others have been looking for this, and let me see if I can get an answer before we all wrap up today. Go ahead.
Jen, could you speak to the efficacy of sanctions? I know there was a new sanctions package rolled out this week, and initially we heard a lot from administration officials about this being a deterrent. I know that has changed, and so can you speak to sort of the end goal and what is the efficacy of sanctions?
Well, I would say that we have a couple of objectives at this point as it relates to the war in Ukraine. One is to impose severe consequences, send a marker for the world and for history about the horrific nature of these atrocities. These consequences, and the second part of our objective is to ensure that these consequences are having a significant impact on the economy in Russia. We're seeing an inflationary rate of about 15%, a projection of a contraction of 15% in the Russian economy.
Gotta take my meds, like I said. I had oral surgery this week, so my face is cut up. I shouldn't be talking as much as I am, but who would hang out if I just sat here and watched episodes? No one, that's who. Again, this is for those of you who love to hang out and just live stream. News junkies like myself, please join the discussion. If you're on Twitch, thanks for hanging out. If you're on YouTube, thanks for hanging out. Come over to Twitch. As always, I get censored on there less, and I have a better opportunity to actually keep doing this longer. She's talking really fast. She's talking really fast because I have it on 1 1/4. I always watch her at 1 1/4.
Economy. 600 private sector companies have left Russia. We know it is having the impact that the world intended. This is the most.
And yeah, 3 more follows to hit the next goal on Twitch, guys. So 3 more follows, and I'll toast this bad boy up.
Significant coordinated set of sanctions ever done in history on this large of an economy. The third objective here is to make it much more difficult for President Putin to fund his war. And if you look back, say earlier this week, at the example of the bond payments and how Russia has basically been put in a decision of in a place where they either have to use their limited resources they have that are also being used to fund the war to prevent a default or default. That is the position they're in at this point in time, but also because we've cut them off through export controls and a number of other means from having access to materials and technology, but also access to funds. It makes it more difficult for them to fund the war. That is part of it. And the last objective is to continue to make it clear that this is a strategic blunder, their decision to invade Ukraine, and one that will make President Putin a pariah in the world. So those are why and what we are hoping to achieve.
Just one follow-up. Is there anything being done in terms of either monitoring or actually just, I guess, monitoring to take a look at the effects of sanctions on ordinary Russians or anything that the administration is thinking to just deal with that population of people who are being affected?
The Russian people,
Yes,
you mean? Certainly we are looking at how this is impacting the Russian economy writ large, and it is certainly as inflation is going up and as the economy is contracting, that means prices will go up, and we do know there will be a broad impact. That is the fault of President Putin and the fault of President Putin invading a sovereign country. So it is important also for the Russian people to know and understand that, and we have
Sovereign country. I love how she gets up in his face. Like, come at me, bro. Come at me, bro. Come at me, bro.
been working through a range of means to communicate about the realities of the war and the facts of the war through Telegram, through YouTube, through a range of channels as well. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. General Milley earlier this week talked about the possibility of building permanent U.S. bases on NATO's eastern flank. I wonder with what seriousness the White House has given that, or as you look long-term at the war in Ukraine, whether shoring up the eastern flank with permanent bases is something that's being considered.
There'll continue to be a range of discussions, but I have nothing beyond what General Milley said.
Can I ask one more question? I want to go a little deeper on the French elections.
Sure.
Does the White House worry that the election of Le Pen could, destabilize the NATO alliance or make it difficult, being that she's, come out with pro-Russian statements?
Well, I'm just not going to get ahead of an election in a foreign country, and obviously we will watch it closely, and I'm sure we'll have more to speak to once the results are concluded. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. What can you tell us about the multiple Secret Service agents who have been suspended or removed from the President, Vice President, and First Lady's detail pending this investigation of two men impersonating officers of law enforcement?
Not much from here. I can point you to the Secret Service, and obviously the FBI is overseeing the investigation.
Is there a broader concern in the administration that these principals, is there concern that they're not being protected effectively? Can you speak at all to that, or?
As I said yesterday, the President remains confident in the leader of the Secret Service, and beyond that, I would point you to the Secret Service and to the FBI.
And then I guess just on the invitations you issued to Republicans who voted to confirm Justice Jackson. I know one of them has COVID, but did you hear from the other two, Senator Murkowski and Romney? I know the president went a little further to talk about Senator Romney's father today at his speech. Did the White House hear from the Republicans who were invited today? Why didn't they come?
I would point you to their offices to speak to that. I mean, it doesn't change the president's gratitude to them for, bucking the trend in their party of not supporting an eminently qualified nominee, and they did that, and it was something he wanted to call out today and express his gratitude. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. I'm wondering what the White House's reaction is to yesterday's UN vote to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council. The fact that there were 58 nations that abstained from taking a vote, and on top of the other 24 nations that voted against it. Although there was, more, obviously, the majority of countries.
Again, I just had oral surgery, so I haven't been eating any food lately. Yeah, and we will have a legalized weed segment later, Mr. ADD.
Did vote to suspend Russia. Do you think that this, that many abstentions, that many people sitting on the sidelines, so this shows that the entire world really isn't unified around condemning these actions by Russia?
Well, a win required 2/3 present in voting, and that is exactly what happened, and far beyond that. And we know that there were abstentions, and only 24 countries, including North Korea, voted with Russia. But the outcome was
Only 23, including North Korea. Who cares who it was? 23 isn't nothing. First of all, 23 is not nothing. This kind of says how big our pull is more than anything, but 23 isn't zero. Don't act like it is.
This is what is most important to us is what we wanted, which is Russia has been suspended from the UN Human Rights Council. Suspension, just so everybody knows, somebody asked me this question the other day, but is the only method provided for in the UN resolution that established the Human Rights Council back in 2005. It's the most serious action available. It's only been applied once in history. This is only the second time in history that a country has been kicked out of the UN Human Rights Council. The last example was Libya. So that obviously speaks to the significance. And it also speaks to the fact that more than two-thirds of countries who are members believe that they should not have a leadership role on global human rights as they work to subvert and violate global human rights. This also means that once suspended, Russia will not be able to vote against future actions during subsequent Human Rights Council sessions. And so to us it is significant, only the second time in history, and it speaks to the global outrage in response to these atrocities.
But are there any concerns that nearly 60 nations decided not to weigh in on this matter?
Again, our focus is on the fact that it was a win. For only the second time in history was a country suspended from the UN Human Rights Council.
Another question. Does President Biden still intend to attend the White House Correspondents Association dinner here later this month in a couple weeks?
We haven't announced his plan.
We haven't announced his plans, and I'm not going to speak to it because I'm not going to be here. Oh, I love the way that goes. I love the way she answers that. That's how I hear it. So I don't think that's what she says.
Plans to attend or anything about his schedule, so I don't have any update on that today.
All right.
Go ahead, Karen.
Or, I'm not going to be here. I don't care. Why did you ask me that? That's not in my shit. Next person. We'll deal with you.
Some follow-ups to things that came up.
Sure.
To follow up on Peter's question about the testing cadence, you guys told us about negative tests on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Should we expect that the president would get tested on Sunday, 2 days later?
I would say I don't have a prediction of that. His doctor makes an assessment of when he should be tested and how often and what the cadence should be. It's not always exactly the same, and but we will provide information to you when he tests negative.
Okay,
or either way, of course, yes.
And to follow up on Katie's question, did the president talk to any of the senators, Romney, Murkowski, and Collins, after their vote yesterday on Ketanji Brown?
I don't have any update on that from you.
Okay, and when he said he hoped he didn't get them in trouble today, when he referenced them, what did he mean by that?
I think he meant he recognizes that the vast majority of the other members of their party voted a different way. Go ahead.
Thank you. On India, next week, Secretary of State Blinken and Defense Secretary are hosting their Indian counterparts. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh for the first India-US 2+2 dialogue under this administration. What is President's message to the meeting? What is expectations? Is he sending any concrete ideas to this meeting as well?
President Biden believes our partnership with India is one of the most important relationships we have in the world. As you know, he met with Prime Minister Modi and other Quad leaders in March. He expects that at this 2+2, Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin will continue driving forward our...
We love those billion-person countries, don't we? We love those billion-people countries.
Our work with India and our shared goals in the Indo-Pacific region and around the world. We also believe both sides will continue our close consultations on the consequences of President Putin's brutal war against Ukraine and mitigating the impact by addressing energy and food prices. Obviously, it could cover a range of topics, so we expect that to be a central one.
And secondly, given the U.S. frustrating experience it is having in the UN Security Council, where one country is coming out and vetoing all the issues with Ukraine, what is President's thoughts on the reforms in the UN Security Council itself?
Well, I know a question has been asked about whether Russia could be kicked out of being a permanent member. We don't anticipate that happening. But obviously the step taken yesterday to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council is an indication of the global response and horror at the atrocities we've seen happen on the ground in Ukraine. But beyond that, I don't have any other predictions of reforms.
Should there be individual veto or group veto inside the Security Council?
Again, I understand your questions, but I don't have any predictions or calls for that at this point in time. Go ahead, Jessica.
I understand. No, nothing.
Okay, well, just a few more. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Since his State of the Union address, the president has only made a handful of domestic trips. We've talked in here before about how he'd like to get back into the community and have a chance to interact with the American people. Is the current COVID wave getting in the way of his travel plans?
No, I expect he's going to travel a bunch in the next few weeks.
Okay, and you had mentioned that you will be going to North Carolina, and you didn't have too much more to add on that. But might the president, while he's in Greensboro, be visiting one of the area's two historically black colleges and universities?
I don't have more details at this point in time. As they get finalized, I'm sure we'll share them with all of you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. I have a two-part question on student loans.
Yep.
Last year, President Biden directed the Department of Education to create a report on whether he has presidential authority to unilaterally do a broad cancellation of debt. I don't believe that's ever been made public, and as you're looking at loan extensions or loan pause extensions, can we anticipate seeing a release of that report? And secondly, as you've talked about how the president wants to lower costs for Americans, borrowers have expressed stress, anxiety about these short-term extensions. What's your message to them?
I think our message to them is that not a single person has paid a dime on their student loans since the president took office. And he's continued to evaluate and assess with the Department of Education and other policymakers in the administration what the needs are to lower costs for people, including people who have student loans and do feel stressed, even as the economy is continuing to recover, but as we see costs too high in some areas. On the first question, I don't have any update on that. I would tell you that if Congress were to send him a bill to cancel his $10,000 in student loans, in student debt, he'd be happy to sign it. Go ahead. Last one. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, Rachel Wallace, who was the general counsel of the Science Office, who the White House found had been bullied by Dr. Lander, has been told that she will not be getting her job back as general counsel. Why?
I'm not aware of this personnel update. I'd have to check on it. I'm happy to do that, and we will get you back a comment.
Then a follow-up. Yesterday you said, when asked about Vice President Harris's and the mask at the Senate, you said that she would follow CDC protocols at the event today. CDC protocols clearly say you should be wearing a mask. Doesn't distinguish between outside and inside. So why didn't she wear a mask?
And she was socially distanced for the vast majority of the event today.
Standing next to the president.
About 6 feet away. Thanks, everyone.
About 6 feet away.
Everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, the freaking gonna miss that just walk off attitude.
Hi, everyone.
There we go. That's for tomorrow. I mean, that's yesterday for today. Winston-Salem. I think Greensboro or Greenville or something like that is where Biden's going to be today or tomorrow. But they're in North Carolina this weekend. I don't know if it was Winston-Salem, though. I think you said that earlier in the conference. You showed up late, so you missed that part. But we gotta take a break from her. Let's do headlines. I can't do Jen that long.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. As close to corporate news as I can handle. So this is the corporate news headlines I am going to handle today. And if we hear anything that pisses me off, we'll stop and rant. Sound good? All right. Thanks again for joining me, guys. 3 more followers on Twitch, and I will blaze up a wax lace bowl. Otherwise, I'm just going to be sipping on water, trying to keep my face calm because I had surgery a few days ago, and my face is sore. That's why I've been erratic this week, but I just took a painkiller, and we'll see how it goes.
War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United States Senate has confirmed federal appeals judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court, making her the first black woman and first former public defender to serve on the high court. Vice President Kamala Harris, the first black woman to serve as vice president, presided over Thursday's vote as president of the Senate.
On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47. And this nomination is confirmed.
Judge Jackson currently serves on the D.C. Court of Appeals and will be seated as the 116th Justice on the Supreme Court this summer after Justice Stephen Breyer retires. The court's balance.
Wow. That's amazing. Can't believe it happened. Look at all my shock and awe. I'm so surprised. This is surprising news. Sarcasm.
Power.
Sorry, that was sarcasm.
Will remain the same, with 6 justices appointed by Republicans and 3 by Democrats. We'll have more on Jackson's historic confirmation after headlines. In Ukraine, at least 39 people were killed, about 100 others wounded today in a missile attack on a crowded train station in the eastern city of Kramatorsk. Among the dead were 4 children. Ukrainian officials accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilians attempting to flee Russia's heavy assault on the region. Russia has denied responsibility. For the first time, the Kremlin spokesperson has acknowledged Russia's military has suffered significant losses. Dmitry Peskov spoke with the British channel Sky News.
You've lost thousands of troops. How many troops have you lost?
We have significant losses of troops, and it's a huge tragedy for us.
Brussels. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Thursday the U.S. is preparing to send even more advanced weaponry to Ukraine. Blinken made the pledge after meeting with NATO ministers. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba spoke after joining the meeting.
My agenda is very simple. It has only 3 items on it. It's weapons, weapons, and weapons.
The U.S. has sent Ukraine $1.7 billion in military aid since Russia invaded Ukraine 6 weeks ago. Peace activists say the focus should be on diplomacy. Code Pink's Medea Benjamin wrote, quote, Ukraine's foreign minister's agenda should not be weapons, 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 but negotiations, 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 and ceasefire, cease.
Yeah, thank you for giving Medea at least. You know, she might be basically corporate news by this point. I don't think extremely highly of Democracy Now, but at least they do mention Code Pink and Medea Benjamin. So that's something we can give them credit for. So you don't have to agree with everybody all the time. Give them credit when credit is due.
Ceasefire, Code Pink said. The United Nations General Assembly voted Thursday to suspend Russia's membership to the UN Human Rights Council, citing gross and systematic violations and abuses of human rights during its assault on Ukraine. 93 countries voted in favor of the resolution, 24 voted against, including Russia and China. 58 nations abstained, among them India. In Russia, the Nobel Peace Prize-winning newspaper editor Dmitry Muratov says he was attacked on a train Thursday by an assailant who poured red paint over him, causing severe discomfort to his eyes. Last month, Muratov closed the independent newspaper Novaya Gazeta after receiving a second warning from a Russian state censor over its coverage of the invasion of Ukraine. The paper has since launched a European edition staffed by journalists who've chosen to leave Russia. China is facing its worst COVID-19 crisis since the pandemic's initial outbreak in Wuhan. On Thursday, China logged about 25,000 new cases, with 21,000 infections reported in Shanghai alone. That's despite a lockdown that's confined about 26 million Shanghai residents to their homes, where some people are reporting shortages of food and medicine. Meanwhile, Beijing city authorities have introduced their strictest COVID restrictions since early 2020, after authorities reported 35 infections around China's capital over the last week. Here in the United States, a new study finds life expectancy dropped for the second year in a row in 2021 as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to take a heavy toll on public health. Overall, U.S. life expectancy has decreased by nearly 2.5 years since 2019, by far the biggest decrease since World War II. On Thursday, a federal appeals court reversed a lower court ruling and reinstated a White House requirement that most federal workers be vaccinated against COVID-19. Meanwhile, The Guardian reports major cities in California spent large portions of their federal COVID relief money on police departments. About half the $640 million Los Angeles received under the American Rescue Plan went to the LAPD. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has tested positive for coronavirus. A spokesperson for the California Democrats said Thursday Pelosi, who's fully vaccinated and boosted, is asymptomatic for COVID-19. And the White House dismissed concerns about the president's health after Biden was seen embracing Speaker Pelosi and kissing her on the cheek at an event Tuesday. Meanwhile, more elite politicians in Washington announced positive COVID tests, including Republican Senator Susan Collins and Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, both.
Susan Collins, Raphael Warnock? Want to check them out, of course. Always got to check into these things, you know, see what's going on. This is, I don't know, like, this strain of COVID seems to be just the flu. At least that's what we hear, that's what's reported. And so when you have a bunch of senators, a bunch of Congress people not showing up, is it they're doing other things? Do they have other things going that is more important? Was Jen Psaki did she really have COVID, or was she missing because she was interviewing for another job? These are all things we have to ask ourselves, right? Always got to question the narrative of the mainstream media. Mainstream media is not exactly ever doing us any favors, so always question their narrative, always question their motives.
Tested positive Thursday after they cast votes from the Senate floor in favor of confirming Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. In Colombia, a massacre in the indigenous community of Puerto Leguizamo has sparked widespread anger and questions about what led to the assassination of at least 11 people. The killings took place the early morning of March 28th after Colombian soldiers ambushed residents. Al Jazeera reports one of the victims was 16 years old. Colombian President Ivan Duque celebrated the massacre as a successful operation where dissident members of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia had been killed, but witnesses say at least some of the victims were civilians and that the army lied to cover up the mass murder. A joint report by Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch finds authorities in Ethiopia's Tigray region have committed widespread abuses against Tigrayans since November 2020 that amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. These crimes include murder and forced disappearance, torture, deportation, sexual violence, and other inhumane acts. The conflicts displaced more than 400,000 people, and the United Nations said in January up to 40% of Tigray's 6 million people faced an extreme lack of food. This week, the Red Cross said it has secured the first shipments of humanitarian aid to Tigray in 6 months after Ethiopia declared a ceasefire on March 25th. In Mexico, a new report says violence against journalists skyrocketed to unprecedented levels during the first 3 years and 1 month of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's term. During that time, there were nearly 2,000 reported attacks against journalists, including 25 murders, up 85% compared to AMLO's predecessor, Enrique Peña Nieto. At least 8 journalists have been killed in Mexico. El Salvador's Congress has approved a new measure that punishes anyone, including journalists, who share information about gangs. Violators face a prison sentence of up to 15 years. Press freedom advocates are denouncing the move as censorship and warn it could lead to wrongful arrests. This is the president of the Salvadoran journalists.
Odd that the country that just got rid of the dollar and took on Bitcoin as a secondary currency, that they're all of a sudden having uprisings and all of a sudden having massive problems. When 2 years ago they had a very stable, they'd finally stabilized their economy with some socialist programs. So socialist, anti-dollar, cryptocurrency instead of the fiat. We're gonna attack them soon. There's gonna be some ops coming your way, guys. Look out.
Association.
I think the government is trying to prevent us from speaking about certain things, from speaking about how they made deals with gangs, how the state protects gang members from being extradited to the United States.
This comes as the Salvadoran government continues to enforce a brutal 30-day state of emergency that suspended several constitutional protections and led to the arrest of over 8,000 people accused of being in gangs in the last 13 days. To see our interview on this subject, go to democracynow.org. Pakistan's parliament is poised to remove Prime Minister Imran Khan from office after Pakistan's top court overturned his move to block a no-confidence vote, which he was widely...
Again, this is mostly AP Press filtered news. For the most part, Democracy Now! Does not do their own reporting. This is the most tolerable of the mainstream media news. I am not claiming this to be solid references. I am not claiming this to be a good... it's a good way to look at what mainstream media is doing before I go to independent sources for the rest of the show. Because I don't really use... you will never see me going to Fox or CNN or MSNBC on a regular basis because I do not watch those. I keep those out of my peripheral. I do not pay attention to that shit. I keep it out of my head so I don't see any of that propaganda, and I can slowly move away from that propaganda forever and ever. Thanks be to Chomsky. You know. So yeah, That's what we're working on here. And I said that looking around. It's in the car.
Expected to lose. Opposition lawmakers have accused Khan of carrying out an open coup against the country and the Constitution. Khan has accused Pakistani lawmakers of plotting with the United States to remove him from power. Israeli authorities have lifted a lockdown of central Tel Aviv after soldiers killed a Palestinian man blamed for a deadly shooting at a bar Thursday night that killed 2 people and injured 13 others. Israeli police say the alleged gunman died in a shootout near a mosque in southern Tel Aviv after a 9-hour manhunt. The attacker was identified as a 28-year-old Palestinian from Jenin in the occupied West Bank. Jenin was the site of an Israeli raid last Saturday that saw 3 Palestinians killed in a shootout with Israeli forces. Thursday evening's attack was the 4th deadly assault targeting Israelis in less than 3 weeks. In Puerto Rico, nearly 500,000 people remain without electricity after a fire at a main power plant caused the biggest blackout the island has seen so far this year. Thursday's massive outage also left some 168,000 residents without water. The latest blackout has intensified the public outrage against Luma Energy, the private Canadian-American company that took over transmission and distribution of power from Puerto Rico's public utility last June.
Yeah, there should be some outrage. They've had nothing but issues since the fucking hurricane like 2-3 years ago, before COVID. They've had nothing but issues, and now they're still battling. They're still got to fight this. No, that's not. Puerto Rico is America. It's unacceptable.
A move that was imposed by the United States. Luma has so far failed to reduce the frequency of power outages that have impacted Puerto Ricans in the aftermath of 2017's Hurricane Maria, which decimated the island's electric grid.
This is an American province right off the freaking shore of Florida, right off my coast. How is this acceptable? How is this a thing?
New York's Attorney General has asked a judge to hold Donald Trump in contempt of court after he refused to turn over documents to her civil probe into the Trump Organization's business practices. Letitia James said Trump should be fined $10,000 a day until he turns over documents her office has requested on 8 separate occasions. Meanwhile, the Washington Post reports the U.S. Department of Justice has begun taking steps to investigate Trump's removal of presidential records to his Mar-a-Lago resort, some of which were labeled top secret and classified. An investigation by the New York Times revealed the Homeland Security Department's Inspector General and top aides.
I'm sorry, am I watching a skipping CD right now? What the hell was that? Am I watching a skipping CD? Seriously.
Ordered staff to hide damaging findings and reports of domestic violence and sexual misconduct involving Department of Homeland Security law enforcement officials. One report had found that at least 10,000 employees at Customs and Border Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the Secret Service, and the Transportation Security Administration experienced sexual harassment or sexual misconduct at work. Meanwhile, these agencies had a pattern of using cash payments, some up to $255,000, to settle sexual harassment complaints without investigating or disciplining the perpetrators. And President Biden has signed a bill to shore up the finances of the U.S. Postal Service. The Postal Service Reform Act ensures mail deliveries 6 days a week and eliminates a costly 2006 mandate that required the USPS to fund employee retirement benefits 75 years in advance. This week, Democratic lawmakers joined climate activists outside USPS headquarters in a rally rejecting Postmaster General Louis DeJoy's decision to buy a new generation of gasoline-powered delivery trucks. Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey said the Postal Service should instead commit to purchasing 160,000 union-made electric vehicles.
The Postal Service, Board of Governors, and the Biden administration can't let this bad for business, bad for climate, bad for health, bad for labor decision stand. If DeJoy won't get rid of this decision, the USPS should get rid of Louis DeJoy.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
Good for you, Amy Goodman, for doing an okay show, I guess. All right, I'm just going to do a quick check-in, guys. Make sure my volumes look good. They look good. I had somebody question me. I can't get on text right now the way my setup is working this moment. I cannot watch both of my chats and do a text at all, so I would have to lose a chat to text somebody, so I can't text anybody. But just a quick shout out if you're watching right now. I'm always interested in the censorship of things and how the two streaming networks censor just little shows like myself. Currently my YouTube shows 0, which is interesting, and my Twitch shows 3. So if you are on one of the platforms, if you could just give me a quick shout out. If you're stoned and pass out, I forgive you, no big deal. But if you happen to be on one of the platforms, my YouTube is showing 0 to 1, my Twitch is showing 2 to 3. So if you see something different, let me know. Before we move on to the next segment, I was just kind of wondering how my stream is looking. Looks like I've had 10 check-ins on Twitch tonight, 8 check-ins on YouTube. So those of you who check in for looks like 15 or so average minutes, thanks for hopping on. If I'm catching you, got lots more news tonight. Keep stopping back in. Thanks for hanging out, checking in. This is your chilled out news show recap of the week. Looks like I'm up 0 to 2 on YouTube, 2 to 4 on Twitch. If you happen to be on, throw the number on there on the chat. Let me know if my side looks the same as your side. I would love to know how the suppression works. Always good to check in with that once in a while. Alright, so moving on. As we wait to see if anybody's going to check in and see how the suppression's working, I wanted to move on to the hearing and hear this garbage. I have not watched this yet. I saved it for today. I wanted to watch this live reactorial. And again, if I get 2 or 3 follows, 2 follows on YouTube, 3 follows on Twitch, I will blaze another bowl. I'm saving it till then, though. Hold on.
I've been looking forward to.
Hold on, Mumbles. All right, so we're gonna check out Mumbles here for a minute, and then gonna watch this hearing. So you're gonna comment? You're not even gonna comment what I was talking about for like 3 minutes? Not even paying attention, just commenting, huh? All right. Still talking about fucking Biden. All right. So here's some partisan politics for you, people. This 3 people here are not Democrats. They're not Republicans. They're part of the oligarchy. Okay? I think it's important to know that. These people are not Democrats. They're not Republicans. They're part of the oligarch.
For a while. To introduce you, the next Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, the Honorable Ketanji Brown Jackson.
And we're watching at 1 1/4. I'm not dealing with this garbage at slow, regular ass, normal talking point speed, where they're, trying to judge what they're doing every minute. I'm not watching it like that. And another shout out, guys, if you're on here, I currently am showing 2 people on YouTube, 3 people on Twitch. I want to know if it's different on your end or not. Let me know. Please let me know. Just type the number into the stream. The way I have the stream set up, I can't text or call anybody at the moment. Everything is being used. Everything is being used for me to pull this shit off. Because I am technologically not advanced and I have old shit.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. President. It is the greatest honor of my life to be here with you at this moment, standing before my wonderful family, many of my close friends, your distinguished staff and guests, and the American people. Over these past few weeks, you've heard a lot from me and about me, so I hope to use this time primarily to do something that I have not had sufficient time to do, which is to extend my heartfelt thanks to the many, many people who have helped me as part of this incredible journey. I have quite a few people to thank, and as I'm sure you can imagine, in this moment, it is hard to find the words to express the depth of my gratitude. First, as always, I have to give thanks to God for delivering me as promised and for sustaining me throughout this nomination and confirmation process. As I said at the outset, I have come this far by faith, and I know that I am truly blessed. To the many people who have lifted me up in prayer since the nomination, thank you. I am very grateful. Thank you as well, Mr. President, for believing in me and for honoring me with this extraordinary chance to serve our country. Thank you also, Madam Vice President, for your wise counsel and steady guidance. And thank you to the First Lady and the Second Gentleman for the care and warmth that you have shown me and my family. I would also like to extend my thanks to each member of the Senate. You have fulfilled the...
Oh my goodness, this is so boring. 2 minutes into a 19-minute clip, watching it at 1 1/4, and I already want to give up. Again, this is my reaction. My reaction is, this is not a heartfelt moment for me. These people are corporate owned. They're going to do what the oligarchs want. It doesn't matter what their names are, who they are. We're still going to get screwed every day that these people have anything to do with being in power. And it sucks so much.
Important constitutional role of providing advice and consent under the leadership of Majority Leader Schumer. And I'm especially grateful for the work of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee under Chairman Durbin's skillful leadership. As you may have heard, during the confirmation process, I had the distinct honor of having 95 personal meetings with 97 sitting senators. And we had substantive and engaging conversations about my approach to judging and about the role of judges in the constitutional system we all love. As a brief aside, I will note that these are subjects about which I care deeply. I have dedicated my career to public service because I love this country and our Constitution and the rights that make us free. I also understand from my many years of practice as a legal advocate, as a trial judge, and as a judge on a court of appeals.
Okay, I just got to look at the two of them in the background right now. First of all, Joe's sunglasses look like they were photoshopped on because he was sleeping and they don't want people to see his eyes. They literally look like they were photoshopped on. I don't know. And Kamala looks like she's trying not to laugh because she knows this is all a fucking joke. Now that's what my interpretation of their faces are. I guess you can interpret their stupid faces however you like, but so she's sitting there trying to not laugh, and he is completely tuned out with I got hairy legs in his head.
That part of the genius of the constitutional framework of the United States is its design, and that the framers entrusted the judicial branch with the crucial but limited role. I've also spent the better part of the past decade hearing thousands of cases and writing hundreds of opinions, and in every instance, I have done my level best to stay in my lane and to reach a result that is consistent with my understanding of the law and with the obligation to rule independently without fear or favor. I am humbled and honored to continue in this fashion as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, working with brilliant colleagues, supporting and defending the Constitution, and steadfastly upholding the rule of law. But today, at this podium, my mission is far more modest. I'm simply here to give my heartfelt thanks to the categories of folks who are largely responsible for me being here at this moment.
Oh my goodness.
First, of course, there is my family. Mom and Dad.
Yeah, I hope you're talking
not
about
only
her goals. Like, we should be hearing her goals, right? Not just thank you, 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 thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for bringing me. We made it. We are now here now. Thank you, 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 thank you. Goodbye. And then go into the shadows. And we're just gonna do some shady shit back here. But thank you. Thank you.
for traveling back here on what seems like a moment's notice, but for everything you've done and continue to do for me. My brother Kataj is here as well. You've always been an inspiration to me as a model of public service and bravery, and I thank you for that. I love you all very much. To my in-laws, Pamela and Gardner Jackson, who are here today, and my sisters-in-law and brothers-in-law, William and Dana, Gardy and Natalie, thank you for your love and support. To my daughters, Talia and Layla, I bet you never thought you'd get to skip school by spending a day at the White House. This is all pretty exciting for me as well, but nothing has brought me greater joy than being your mother. I love you very much.
Oh, that's so fun. Nice.
Patrick, thank you for everything you've done for me over these past 25 years of our marriage. You've done everything to support and encourage me, and it is you who've made this moment possible. Your steadfast love gave me the courage to move in this direction. I don't know that I believed you when you said that I could do this, but now I do.
I bet she has written in there laugh. She remembered to laugh. Or she had like quotes around it, so she's like, remember, this is a joke. Don't say it seriously. So many of these people are so fake, it's hard to believe any of them. Like, if there was a genuine one, I bet these guys even had like a laugh cue card at some point. Like, it's just so hard to believe any of them. They're all so fake. This is such not a genuine moment. Like, it's such a staged moment. It's kind of gross. I feel like it feels tacky to watch it.
And for that, I'm forever grateful. In the family category, let me also briefly mention the huge extended family, both Patrick's and my own, who are watching this from all over the country and the world. Thank you for supporting me. I hope to be able to connect with you personally in the coming weeks and months. Moving on briefly to the second category of people that warrant special recognition, those who provided invaluable support to me professionally in the decades prior to my nomination, and the many, many friends I have been privileged to make throughout my life and career. Now, I know that everyone who finds professional success thinks they have the best mentors, but I truly do. I had 3 inspiring jurists for whom I had the privilege of clerking: Judge Patty Saris, Judge Bruce Selya, and of course, Justice Stephen Breyer. Each of them is an exceptional public servant, and I could not have had better role models for thoughtfulness, integrity, honor, and principle, both by word and deed. My clerkship with Justice Breyer in particular was an extraordinary gift, and one for which I've only become more grateful with each passing year. Justice Breyer's commitment to an independent, impartial judiciary is unflagging. And for him, the rule of law is not merely a duty, it is his passion. I am daunted by the prospect of having to follow in his footsteps.
That's funny. I don't believe anything she's saying, so that to me was a funny line. It's a joke,
And
right?
I would count myself lucky, indeed, to be able to do so with even the smallest amount of his wisdom, grace, and joy. The exceptional mentorship of the judges for whom I clerked has proven especially significant for me during this past decade of my service as a federal judge. And of course, that service itself has been a unique opportunity. For that, I must also thank President Obama, who put his faith in me by nominating me to my first judicial role on the federal district court.
Applause. Pause. Applause. Pause. Applause. They have the same, like, political face on. I don't think either of these two care about anything that's happening right now. Like, I don't think we've ever had two less in touch with what's happening people. Like Kamala is just a figure, and Biden doesn't really have any concept. And right now, Kamala is just kind of playing the game, trying to see how long she can roll these dice and see if maybe she can get into that seat, I think. And she's just calculating. Like, she has no concept of what's going on around her. And he has no concept of what's going on at all. So this might be the two least attached people we've had. It's really bad. There's better ways to say that. Definitely better ways to say that.
This brings me to my colleagues and staff of the Federal District Court in Washington, D.C. and the D.C. Circuit. Thank you for everything. I am deeply grateful for your wisdom and your battle-tested friendship through the years. I also want to extend a special thanks to all of my law clerks, many of whom are here today, who have carved out time and space to accompany me on this professional journey. I'm especially grateful.
Man, she's not going to say anything about herself. She's just going to be thankful for everybody, huh? This is just one big applaud. Yeah. Again, I didn't watch this yet. I was saving it for tonight. And wow. Boy, do they disappoint.
Jennifer Gruda, who has been by my side since nearly the outset of my time on the bench and has promised not to leave me as we take this last big step. To the many other friends that I have had the great good fortune to have made throughout the years, from my neighborhood growing up, from Miami Palmetto Senior High School, and especially the debate team, from my days at Harvard College, where I met my indefatigable and beloved roommates, Lisa Fairfax, Nina Coleman Simmons, and Antoinette Sequeira Coakley. They are truly my sisters. To my time at Harvard Law School and the many professional experiences that I've been blessed to have since graduation, thank you. I have too many friends to name, but please know how
I'm going to name everybody I possibly can. Make sure I get all that in there. Again, I just want to make sure I say this. These three people are oligarchs. That is how I see them. I don't see this as a moment towards massive progression. I don't think we're going to change or accomplish anything with these three people.
much you've meant to me and how much
Just standard oligarchy from here on out.
I have appreciated the smiles, the hugs, and the many attagirls that have propelled me forward to this day. Finally, I'd like to give special thanks to the White House staff and the special assistants who provided invaluable assistance in helping me to navigate the confirmation process. My trusted Sherpa, Senator Doug Jones, was an absolute godsend. He was an absolute godsend. He's not only the best storyteller you'd ever want to meet, but also unbelievably popular on the Hill, which helped a lot. I'm also standing here today in no small part due to the hard work of the brilliant folks who interact with the legislature and other stakeholders on behalf of the White House, including Louisa Terrell, Rima Doden, Tona Boyd, Minion Moore, Ben LaBalt, and Andrew.
Man, him asking somebody like that is the most awkward. Stand up and. Biden should just not I feel like they should Photoshop a picture of him into him. Like they need to CGI Biden over Biden so that we don't have to see his awkwardness. I think that would help us all out a lot. Seriously.
I am also particularly grateful for the awe-inspiring leadership of White House counsel Dana Remus. Of Paige Herwig, where's Paige? And Ron Klain. They led an extraordinarily talented team of White House.
We don't know who these people are, so our applause is going to get progressively lower because we don't actually care. So the first one's like, yay, yay. All right, yes, let's move on. Oh, this is such a fucking cringe act. I can't believe they sit through this shit.
Staffers in the Herculean effort that was required to ensure that I was well prepared for the rigors of this process and in record time. Thank you all. Thank you as well to the many, many kind-hearted people from all over this country and around the world who have reached out to me directly in recent weeks with messages of support. I have spent years toiling away in the relative solitude of my chambers with just my law clerks in isolation, so it's been somewhat overwhelming, in a good way, to recently be flooded with thousands of notes and cards and photos expressing just how much this moment means to so many people. The notes that I've received from children are particularly cute and especially meaningful, because more than anything, they speak directly to the hope and promise of America. It has taken 232 years.
I'll agree with that. Young people don't see the nuances like we do, right? Like young people are like, they very much see this first this, first that. They very much see it. I mean, probably up until teenage years where they start questioning things. My class was a little intense. We started questioning things at like 6th, 7th grade, maybe even 5th or 6th grade. But yeah, so like young people are going to take this opportunity, and it's really going to make effect on some young people. That's a good thing. Yes, that is a fantastic moment for people who don't understand that these people are corporate owned. Nothing's going to fundamentally change. That was what Biden said. Anything he does is not going to fundamentally change anything. So he was very much true on that one campaign promise. Nothing will fundamentally change with him. But in young people's eyes, yeah, that could inspire some 10, 12-year-olds. That's a good thing.
And 115 prior appointments for a black woman to be selected to serve on the Supreme Court of the United States. But we've made it.
Change isn't happening. What did I just say?
We've made it, all of us, all of us. And our children are telling me that they see now, more than ever, that here in America, anything is possible.
False. Anything is not possible. Progressives doing anything in Congress, not possible. Third party getting a fair shot, not possible. Not right now. Now maybe we're looking at that like it's just. I'm sorry again. These are I just think like these are just the oligarchs. They're not progressive. They're not gonna push anything. They're not gonna change the Overton window. They're not gonna do anything progressive. They're disappointing. Massively disappointing.
They also tell me that I'm a role model, which I take both as an opportunity and as a huge responsibility. I am feeling up to the task primarily because I know that I am not alone. I am standing on the shoulders of my own role models, generations of Americans who never had anything close to this kind of opportunity, but who got up every day and went to work believing in the promise of America, showing others through their determination and, yes, their perseverance that good things can be done in this great country. From my grandparents on both sides, who had only a grade school education but instilled in my parents the importance of learning, to my parents, who went to racially segregated schools growing up and were the first in their families to have the chance to go to college. I am also ever buoyed by the leadership of generations past who helped to light the way, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Justice Thurgood Marshall, and my personal heroine, Judge Constance Baker Motley. They and so many others did the heavy lifting that made this day possible. And for all of the talk of this historic nomination and now confirmation, I think of them as the true path breakers. I am just the very lucky first inheritor of the dream of liberty and justice for all. To be sure, I have worked hard to get to this point in my career, and I have now achieved something far beyond anything my grandparents could have possibly ever imagined. But no one does this on their own. The path was cleared for me so that I might rise to this occasion. And in the poetic words of Dr. Maya Angelou, I do so now while bringing the gifts my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. So as I take on this new role, I strongly believe that this is a moment in which all Americans can take great pride. We have come a long way toward perfecting our union. In my family, it took just one generation to go from segregation to the Supreme Court of the United States. And it is an honor, the honor of a lifetime, for me to have this chance to join the court, to promote the rule of law at the highest level, and to do my part to carry our shared project of democracy and equal justice under law forward into the future.
Ooh, that was weak. That was rough. All right, let's go back to something that'll actually get me more frustrated than anything else. Jen's farewell week. Nah, she's not quite left yet, but you can tell she is checking out. This was yesterday's. Beginning of the show, we did today's. Middle of the show, we're going to do yesterday's. I got a few more segments, and then we'll finish the show with Wednesdays, and then I'll finish on Twitch with a couple things I can't show on YouTube, because YouTube sucks. Anyhow, always censoring me, always sending me email threats. They love to do that, YouTube. Telling me I'm an adult only. Adult only. So, thank you for joining me on Twitch. I have the maturity level set on both things, but for some reason YouTube has to keep poking the bear. Let's check out Jen Psaki and see what kind of crap she threw out today. Or yesterday, sorry.
Okay, a couple of items for you at the top. Obviously, this is a tremendously historic day in the White House and in the country, and this is a fulfillment of a promise the president made to the country. His time on the Judiciary Committee was defining for him.
As always, we're going to watch her at 1 1/4.
Preparation for what we would consider a smooth
and
process.
I forgot that she
characterized by heavy
has the whole
engagement
talking
with both
crap.
parties in the Senate during both the advice and consent phases. He promised to choose a successor in the mold of Justice Breyer, as Republicans and Democrats called for, and after thorough. Just wanted to highlight Vidant and his amazing contributions and everything he does to help me, help all of us, help the president every day.
As I said, these last few days, she has given props to everybody. Mad props, mad props, mad props, mad props. The farewell tour, giving props to everybody. So she's giving props, and then she's going to get blasted with questions on COVID, on Russia. Of course, there's a horse, of course.
I've got 3 things. Thanks so much. Ukraine's foreign minister at Naval Day made it very clear that this country needs more weapons and needs them fast. I'm wondering if it's time for the U.S. and other allies to not just provide defensive weaponry, but actually provide offensive weaponry.
Well, let me give you a sense of where we are. As of now, we have committed to providing $1.7 billion of weapons, of security assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of this conflict, more than $2 billion since the president took office. There are transfers of systems nearly every single day. I would note we just announced 2 days ago $100 million in javelins, which are a critical weapon that the Ukrainians have been using effectively to fight the Russians, push back the Russians, and defend their country. I would also note that as
like javelins. I'm guessing it's a missile that's like. But really, javelin? That's what we're going to. Jesus.
It relates to the type of systems and material we are providing. For every Russian tank in Ukraine, the United States will have or has provided 10 anti-tank systems. If you factor in contributions from allies, we're almost at 90-1. That means 1 tank, Russian tank, 10 anti-tank systems to fight them back. For every Russian armored vehicle in Ukraine, the United States will have provided about 3 anti-armor systems. If you factor in contributions from allies, it's about 25-1. The way this works, and the last thing I'll say, and get to your next question, the way that it works is that the Ukrainian leaders request a range of assistance. They often provide us lists. We go through that.
She's so condescending when she explains stuff too. It's just, we're really gonna miss you, Jen. This is just, who can do it quite like you, huh? You know, Sean Spicer had his own methods and it made it great. She has her own methods. It makes it great. We're really gonna have a drop off when we lose Jen.
List. We determine what we can provide. We provide a vast, vast majority of what they're requesting. If we don't have access to it, sometimes it's Russian-made military equipment. We work with our allies and partners to see what they can provide. And our focus, as Department of Defense officials have conveyed on the Hill when they've testified this week, has been providing what they are trained on and what we know is effective in fighting this war. And we've already seen to date that the use of this security assistance has been central and essential in effectively fighting the war as they have done. Go ahead,
Are you
Mara.
saying that that's sufficient, that you feel that you've given them enough? I mean, what do you mean by those metrics?
Well, I provided them because I think it's interesting or compelling to understand, right, the range and the significance and the totality of the type of assistance we provided. We have not stopped, nor are we stopping providing additional security assistance. We have announcements nearly every couple of days. I just think that, to me, was interesting and compelling to better understand the significance and the broad scope of the assistance we provided.
But you're saying there'll be no let-up in your efforts to
No,
provide them with
I don't think I
more.
conveyed that in any way. Yep, go ahead.
Just to kind of follow up on that, the Secretary of State yesterday on the Russian language Telegram channel said, quote, we're looking at other systems, some of them larger, more sophisticated, that may be useful going forward. Is he talking about the systems that allies might have that we're trying to backfill, or what was, for clarity's perspective, was he trying to say that?
Well, partly, yes, because there are systems, of course, we have access to. We have the best military in the world. We have a range of systems we have access to that we have been providing. We will continue to provide. There are certain systems, as you noted, the S-300 is one of them, of course, where they have requested. We continue to work with allies and partners on what systems and equipment they have access to and they would have the capacity to provide. Sometimes that means backfilling systems. And there is also systems and weapon systems that they may request that we may not talk about because for operational reasons and their own process, it wouldn't be to their benefit to do that.
Potentially talking about U.S. systems that we just aren't necessarily aware of at this point?
He's talking about, we're not going to detail always every type of system or every type of weapon we're going to work with allies to provide. We have detailed it quite extensively from here, but we're not going to detail everything. We haven't over the course of time for operational purposes. But what he was conveying is that we'll continue to work with our partners and allies in meeting the needs and the requests that the Ukrainians have put forward.
And then Germany's Foreign Intelligence Service briefed the parliamentary committee over there that it intercepted radio communications of Russian soldiers talking about killing civilians. Is the U.S. either aware of that intelligence or does it have any intercepts of its own that show something similar?
I have seen the reports, but I don't have anything more on those reports or the intelligence. Go ahead.
Yes, I guess the president obviously tested negative today, according to CDC guidelines.
Yesterday.
I'm sorry, yesterday.
Yes.
Obviously did. Obviously, or else he wouldn't be out hugging people. Obviously.
And Speaker Pelosi was not considered a close contact, but it seems like a very
I don't think anything's obvious with the White House administration and staff, but
close call. I know you said that he had a second booster and that he's following CDC guidelines, but given the importance of his role and his age, is the White House considering any stricter measures to keep him safe? More mask wearing, fewer big venue events, more outdoor events?
Well, when you say it's a close call, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Close call in the sense that they were in 2 events at the White House together within 2 days. She tested
I gotta
positive.
grab a drink.
Sure, okay. Well, for clarity purposes, the way a close contact is defined, it's not arbitrary, it's not something made up by the White House. It's CDC guidelines, and how they define it is being within 6 feet for a cumulative total of 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. That they were not. All of their interactions were publicly available. I think you saw them, and that's how that assessment is made. In terms of additional testing or anything along those lines, those assessments would be made by the president's doctor. He was tested last evening and tested negative. We have incredibly stringent protocols here at the White House that we keep in place to keep the president safe, to keep everybody safe. Those go over and above CDC guidelines, and that includes ensuring that anyone who is going to be around the president is tested. Every member of the staff is on a regular testing protocol. If you're going to see him in person, whether you're traveling with him or you're meeting in the Oval Office, you will be tested. We try to do socially distanced meetings when necessary. For those employees who test positive, they are required to isolate, of course, in alignment with CDC guidance, must test negative before returning to work. That is also a step that goes over and above. But we are going to continue to follow the protocols. And I would remind you and reiterate that we also put out a plan just a month ago that made clear that, well, COVID-19 will continue to be with us, and we will see cases rise and fall, as we are seeing them rise now, to be expected given the transmissibility of BA2. We now have steps to go back to many of our normal routines in alignment with what the CDC continues to recommend.
Given the fact that there has been this uptick among people who have been following CDC guidelines, are there plans to revisit those guidelines or edit them in some way, given the uptick?
That would be up to the CDC. But again, again, I think when they put out these guidelines, they made clear that it was about looking at data on hospitalizations and even deaths. And what we have a plan to address, and I would note, I have it with me because we really like COVID props this week, right here. We have copies for anyone who would like a copy. And this is a 100-page preparedness plan that we put out that it meant to protect against and treat COVID, prepare for new variants, prevent shutdowns, vaccinate the world. We expected there to be ups and downs and increases. And with a variant that's as transmissible as BA2, that's what we're seeing at this point in time in the White House, among the press corps, among the general public. And the most important message we're sending to the public is that we have steps in place that we can take to continue to address it. And even as we're continuing to fight COVID, we can, for the most part, return to our normal routines.
Quickly on another topic,
Yeah.
Congress voted to remove most favored nation trade status for Russia and Belarus and ban oil imports. Does President Biden
100 to
plan
0, right? Yes, yes, this is something the president supports, has called for, and certainly plans to sign it.
Back on COVID, you just said that anyone who's around the president is tested. Does that apply just to executive office employees, or is that true also of any members of Congress or invited guests who are here?
If there are individuals who have a meeting with the president, that's what I was referring to, our own protocols. Now, if you're at an event, obviously there are assessments made on a case by case, but if somebody is going to be in close proximity, standing next to him, sitting next to him on a stage, that would be obviously different than a broad group of attendees.
Duh. Oh, just who are we gonna get to be so fucking condescending as she? Who can we possibly find that would be just so condescending as her? We're gonna miss you, Jen. The farewell tour is bittersweet, really. It's really bittersweet. Like, I don't watch MSNBC, so I'm not gonna deal with your shit over there. And I don't know how much they're paying you and how much you're actually gonna be in interactions, but we're gonna miss these daily press briefings of you just being cruel. It's great stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and pack another bowl. While we get deeper into this, let's smoke one and watch her get rowdy. Let's get rowdy. Let's get rowdy. Jen's about to snap on some people, if I remember right. This was yesterday's and I watched it live, so it's been 24 hours and I've watched a lot of Jen since then.
And given sort of the uptick in cases that we've seen here at the White House, on the Hill, there seems to be cases going around in the political world here in Washington, and the fact that sometimes you do go beyond the CDC recommended guidelines. Is there any plan just to test the president daily?
Taking a little cherry punch to the head. Taking a cherry punch to the head. Toast one up for yourselves. Let's look at this for a minute and see if we can get more mad than usual, huh? Thanks for joining me. Let's check out some White House. This is round 2. Yesterday's White House events.
For the next few days or week or so.
That would be a decision made by his doctor, but that is not deemed to be necessary at this point.
And on another topic, a service agent from the First Lady's detail was placed on administrative leave after they associated with and were provided gifts from 2 men who were pretending to be Homeland Security investigations agents. Is the First Lady aware of this? The President aware of this? How concerned are they?
I don't have any comment from here. I'd point you to the Secret Service and others investigating.
Do you have any further guidance on what these 2 men were after or who they may have been working with?
It's being investigated, and I would point you to the proper agencies for any further comment. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Back on COVID, it's pretty clear that vaccines and boosters are not going to prevent you from getting COVID. But we know from science that masking does. Given you yourself saying, how transmissible BA2 is, are there any conversations happening here on campus at the White House to reinstate a mask mandate?
We would continue to follow CDC guidance. That's not what they're recommending, given we are in a yellow zone at this point in time. There are individuals who are masked because they are close contact, and that is part of our protocols. They have had a close contact, and that's part of our protocols. And individuals who may decide to mask because they have health issues in their family, personally, and that's something we also certainly support. But we would always abide by CDC guidance and go beyond it if necessary.
Given what you've said about the plan in place and about living
Cheers.
with COVID, is the end goal not to...
Cheers being, of course, grab your drink, grab your smoke, do whatever you feel like. Let's have one and, watch this.
Stop the spread anymore? Is it just to stop severe cases?
Well,
or
again,
are you still trying to stop the spread?
Of course, we're trying to stop the spread, and we have the means to address that. We're also, though, I would point you to the 100-page plan we put out just a month ago, where it made clear that we will continue to see COVID will continue to be with us. We will see cases rise and fall. We now know how to protect ourselves from hospitalization and death, which is hugely important. We know how much of getting vaccinated, getting boosted can protect you. And we know here in the White House, of course, 99% of people are vaccinated. Many, many people are boosted. And so we have policies that also go even beyond beyond. What is most important right now, as we're looking broadly to the country, is the fact that we are very concerned about the failure of Congress to continue to fund our COVID response, the fact that we have needed to therefore end our program for the uninsured. We are not going to be able to make purchases of a broad scope of boosters, of Evusheld, which is a treatment for immunocompromised or preventative treatment for immunocompromised, that when we get to the end of June, our testing capacity will be at risk of collapsing. And as we're looking broadly beyond the White House of how we're planning, that is our biggest concern at this point in time.
Just one more on the news of the day.
Sure.
You just talked about how historic today was for Judge Jackson to be confirmed, but no reporters were allowed in the room, no TV cameras were allowed in the room to help record that history. Can you help us understand that decision?
Well, today was meant to be a private moment between the president and Judge Jackson, and we made a decision late in the process that we would have some photographers, some of your colleagues in the news media, in the room to capture it for his.
Some of your colleagues. Like, just the way she's like, it's your colleagues too, lady. These are people you work with technically now. Any second now, you're going to be working with them full time as well, so maybe you should respect them. Maybe you should show a little more courtesy. Just a little bit. Maybe. I'm just saying, I'm personally saying that if I was going to be working side by side with these people on the other end, maybe you'd want to have some better ties than being such a snarky, fiery, feisty person. That's the way she talks about her staff, so maybe that's the way she hears herself. I don't know. Alright, I gotta get this thing off. Fucking long hair itchies. Such long hair itchies. How's it looking, guys? Alright. That's fantastic stuff. I love it. Alright. This is some wild out here. I love it. Let's do it.
Those photos have been used by networks, including likely your network, over the course of the last hour. But this was meant to be a private moment. Tomorrow, as we've announced, we have an event, a moment in history, where certainly the president will be speaking. We will have a range of guests. It will be an outside event, and we'll be marking it in that way. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. How can you guys say that President Biden was not in close contact with Speaker Pelosi when there is video of the speaker kissing him?
Don't we love him? The punchable face is just perfect. I don't know if any of you were with me in that first round of Jen, but his punchable face is just, it's so punchable. Look it's perfectly punchable. How do you not want to punch it? And I'm, again, anti-violence, anti-war, anti-all sorts of violence. So I'm not for punching this person. I'm just saying he's punchable. I don't think you should hit him. I'm just saying, like that snarky face. He has the nice big flat, like tall hair to make his face even bigger target. And yeah, he's a dick about things. So he's not, soft with anything. So he's a real dick when he asks stuff. So very punchable.
Well, Peter, the way
Don't
that
do
it
violence.
is defined is
Violence
by
is
the
bad.
Center for Disease Control, the CDC, and their definition of it is 15 minutes of contact within a set period of time and within 6 feet. It did not meet that bar. It does not mean that that no one will get COVID around the world who does not have a close contact. It just means we are defining for all of you whether the president and their interaction met the definition of the CDC of a close contact.
Half the cabinet was there on Tuesday. At least 2 additional cabinet members, Raimondo and Garland, already have COVID. Is there a threat that this is going to be a national security problem if the cabinet comes to the White House and starts getting infected with COVID?
Well, I don't think, Peter, we can assess where they got COVID or where they acquired COVID or whatever the right way to say that is. I don't know that it was Tuesday. There are other events, obviously, that have happened over the course of the last week as well. They are all boosted. They are all, many of them are able to work from home, as many staff and even reporters are, who are vaccinated and boosted. And they all have a talented and experienced team who is stepping into their shoes where needed in the office.
When the last president wanted to host a big event for a Supreme Court nominee here at the White House, some folks got COVID, and then former Vice President Biden called it a super spreader event. So is there any risk that this event tomorrow for a Biden Supreme Court justice is going to be a super spreader event?
Well, one, at that point in time, vaccines weren't available. People were not vaccinated. It certainly puts us in a different space. This event is also going to be outside tomorrow.
Outside does make a difference, I guess. The vaccines weren't a thing back then. They help prevent the spread, but they do not stop the spread. Please don't think the vaccine makes you invincible. It does not. We are all very vincible. We've all been shown to be vincible.
And then on a different topic, when Title 42 expires next month, what is the plan for the 18,000 migrants a day that are going to cross? Do you want them to get jobs here? Is there something else that you want these 18,000 a day to be doing?
I don't know where you're basing your specific numbers on, Peter, but what I would tell you.
I've got it right here. Earlier this week, the department gave reporters an estimate that up to 18,000 migrants could be apprehended at the border each day if Title 42 were
Well,
paid.
up to, and we'll see what happens. And obviously, we're taking steps to convey that this is not the time to come. Individuals who come to the border, this is what would happen. CBP and ICE would work together to ensure that anyone who enters the country without authorization is put into immigration proceedings as quickly as possible. CBP has been working with ICE to ensure individuals awaiting processing in the interior of the country would be monitored under the Alternatives to Detention program. We know that to date, nearly 80% of non-citizens waiting in the interior under prosecutorial discretion have either received a notice to appear or are still within their window to report. That is what would happen. In addition, I would note the Department of Homeland Security also put together a preparedness plan to continue addressing irregular migration that involves surging personnel and resources to the border, improving border processing, implementing mitigation measures, and working with other countries in the hemisphere to manage migration. Those are all steps that they're working to do in order to implement when we get to that point in time.
And the last one on this. Now that the Texas governor is saying that he's going to start busing border crossers to Washington, D.C., when they get here, are you guys going to help them find a place to stay and something for them to do?
Well, I'm not aware of what authority the governor would be doing that under. I think it's pretty clear this is a publicity stunt. His own office admits that a migrant would need to voluntarily be transported, and then he can't compel them to because, again, enforcement of our country's immigration laws lies with the federal government, not a state.
Washington, D.C.?
Well, listen, I don't know, but I know that the governor of Texas.
You're an antagonist. He's a troll. He's a freaking. I think I said this last time. He's a journalist troll. He is a journalist troll, and oh my god, my face is itchy. Remember, narcotics make you itchy. Oh my gosh. Ugh, the narcotics to make my face stop hurting, make my face itchy. Go figure, right? Or maybe that's my face healing. Oh, I can't remember how that works. But my face is itchy.
Or any state does not have the legal authority to compel anyone to get on
face
the bus.
surgery. Face surgery, not a good thing. Narcotics suck. I hate being in pain. I don't like pills. Pills suck. I like nutrients. I take nutrient supplements, but I do not take pills of chemicals from pharmaceutical companies. I do not like those.
Is there pressure to avoid saying that President Biden has had a close contact given his position and the demands of his schedule?
No, we announced yesterday the vice president had a close contact, and if there is 15 minutes that he spends with somebody in person within 6 feet and they test positive for COVID, then that would be a close contact.
So given you said it doesn't necessarily take 15 minutes to get COVID, right? So it could take less than that. Obviously, he was around Nancy Pelosi and many others. Are you doing anything differently? Is there anything being done differently given that circumstance for the president?
He was tested last night and tested negative, and if his doctor deems he should be tested more frequently, he certainly could do that. But again, the CDC guidelines are in place, and the CDC specifics on what a close contact and
I love how mad she gets. Like, why are you wasting my time with this? Why are you even asking this? I love how annoyed she gets. It makes me so happy. Yeah, why are we wasting her time asking these fucking petty questions, dude? Like, these people are supposed to be like elite, like it's supposed to be like an honor to get into that room, and they're asking this kind of garbage, and they're all asking this kind of garbage. Like, I really I like watching these for the fact that these are supposedly some of our elite journalists, right? These are on the ground reporters reporting from the White House, talking to people, bumping elbows, and they're asking this kind of shit. This isn't pressing anything. This isn't finding anything out. And they're just looking, the sound bites they get are useless.
how it's defined or in place for a reason, to give everybody clear, data-driven guidance.
It is clear, but it's not always accurate, right? Because it doesn't take 15 minutes to get COVID, and this is more transmissible, this latest variant, than other variants in the past. It doesn't necessarily require that much time. For example, yesterday we were in the state dining room. The president was face-to-face with many individuals, right up in their mugs for extended periods of time.
Right up in their...
This moment of chance.
Did he just say right up in their mugs? Oh, I know he did. I'd rewind it if I was actually questioning that as the actual question. That's funny. Right up in their mugs. That's funny shit.
To visit with folks. So for clarity, not everybody in that room was tested in advance of arriving, correct?
Correct.
So some of those people who may have been further back but ultimately had, I don't know, 5 minutes, we watched for an hour literally, in the room, may not have been with him for 15 minutes, but could have been in his face having not been tested for an extended
Well,
period
again,
of time.
if individuals are within 6 feet of him for 15 minutes or more, that's considered a close contact. No one in there was, that I'm aware of.
Jackson tested negative before.
Nobody. Nobody. Don't even talk to me about it. We already talked about this shit. Nobody was. Move on. Oh, I just love her attitude. How are we going to get somebody that lies to us like this? Huh? I mean, I'm not saying she's lying about this one fact, but she is a general liar. That's what she's paid to do. That's what she's going to go to MSNBC. She's proven her lyingness, though. That's why she's going to get her big fat contract now. But who are we going to get with this much attitude? Oh, you don't get a Sean Spicer or a Jen Psaki every year. You get other people that are just mediocre afterwards.
For her visit today, I trust.
I don't
We're
have
going to
any
lose
details
such
on
quality.
Jackson's testing protocols.
Let me ask you about the Secret Service.
Such quality we're going to
Does the
lose.
President maintain confidence in the Director of the Secret Service, James Murray?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The farewell tour, man, it sucks.
Is it your sense that Judge Jackson will ascend to the bench sooner than the end of the term? Because our understanding was that Justice Breyer was going to retire at the end of the term.
I don't have any updates on that, or any changes to that, no.
I want to give you a chance to respond. Jonathan Swan did an interview with Mitch McConnell this morning in which Swan asked McConnell whether if Republicans should take the Senate in the midterm elections and another vacancy should occur while this president is still in office, whether a Republican-controlled Senate would hold a hearing on another Biden nominee. He refused to answer that question. Do you have a response to that? What do you think it says about the health of our constitutional system?
Well, I think given it...
Again, another person that in this room, are you going to respond to his refusal to respond? Do you want to respond to his refusal to respond? And you're in this room as like an elite journalist. Seriously. It's a big club and you ain't in it, and that includes these journalists who are paid by these billionaire corporations to ask these fucking rhetorical questions almost.
Today, where with bipartisan support, we are about to have a new member of the Supreme Court, a historic and eminently qualified member of the Supreme Court, and she did get 3 Republicans supporting her. That is a good sign and something we should take a moment to celebrate. Certainly, we don't anticipate or predict. I have no prediction of an additional opening, but we would certainly expect and call for all members of the Senate to operate as professionally as the president and our team did in this case, which is ensuring that there was advice and consent, that our nominee met with 97 senators. That's obviously a great number from the other party. That is how we would conduct ourselves, and we would expect the same in response.
Yeah, CDC aside and distance, et cetera, has the president expressed any surprise or amazement that there's a number of cases around him? And is he asked for people to stay away? What's his kind of human level response to what's going on?
No.
Not at all.
No,
he's completely nonplussed by the fact that a growing number of people around him are getting COVID?
We have anticipated that there would be rising numbers of COVID cases. It is not the numbers in here where it was around Omicron. And I don't know if it was among the press corps. It certainly wasn't among the general public. He knows there are a number of steps and precautions that we put in place and we take to protect him and protect the vice president and other senior members of the team. That includes testing for anybody who goes to see him. That includes social distancing in meetings whenever possible, a step we take, an additional precautionary step we take in order to protect him and protect other senior members of the White House.
Just a second question, if I can. Is there any ongoing or near future conversations with China on the Russia situation, or has the U.S. just concluded China's not going to budge on its position, which is to not really get involved and try to push them off?
There will be
Defensive. Ooh, she went right to the defensive face. That is a face that you don't get to see with Jen very often. She's a little slightly defensive right out there. I guess when you watch Jen every day, you know her faces, and that's the I like it when she gets that reaction.
Ongoing conversations with China, I would expect, including our expectation that they abide by sanctions and that they not provide material support to Russia. I don't have anything to predict in terms of which channel it will happen through next, but certainly I would expect there will be ongoing and continued conversations.
Can I ask whether it's a view of the president's position that if he gets COVID, he'll have a mild case given he has to test a second booster, given his age and given his health profile? Do you expect it not to be a serious case if he were to get it?
Well, I think that is what we see statistically and through as we look at health analysis and data. But obviously, he would be treated by his doctor, and I'm not going to make a prediction of that at this point in time.
Is it fair for us to conclude that the event tomorrow was a factor in it being outside and being tomorrow given outside of training today?
It's supposed to be a beautiful day. That is a big factor.
risk was part of the calculus in deciding how to mark this confirmation. Did you,
Well, I would.
is that part of the reason it's outside?
I would tell you that the biggest factors are actually that, and we would have had events outside earlier in the week too, had the weather allowed. It is that time of year, and certainly we do know that it is better to have events outside when you can have them outside. It is meant to be, it is supposed to be a beautiful day. I'm not a weather person, but that is what everything is telling us. And also we want to be able to invite a large number of people, and this would enable us to do that. So those are the biggest factors, but there's no question, Josh, that that also is true statistically. Or
The CDC is actually a little less clear in the link between the two clauses that you're linking. They talked about, was this person less than 6 feet away from someone? Yes, and the person finds the case. And they say to consider the time spent with someone starting 2 days before. So that includes both the ACA event and yesterday's event. And then separately, they say have they been in the presence of someone with confirmed or suspected COVID for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. As far as we know, Speaker Pelosi might have left right after the event. It was about 14 minutes yesterday, and they spent about 45 minutes the day before. So
But she wasn't.
But she was like 7 feet away. She was, as far as here. So it's the White House position that President Biden, 14 minutes, 7 feet away from Speaker Pelosi, is not in close contact, but 15 minutes, 6 feet away would have been in close contact.
They fucking nitpick her. Man, she is so ready to go get paid on MSNBC. You guys nitpick her so hard. You just pick. Oh. This isn't news. This isn't like pressing. You guys are asking like 5% different questions than the other 10 people in front of you. Come on, press issues. There's 30 topics out there right now. You guys get 20 people to talk. All people should be asking at least 2 different topics. We shouldn't be hitting on how close he is to the vid. Is he at the vid? Is the 19 going to get him? Omicron Persei. Come on, man.
I asked by way of saying, was there a discussion of whether to treat him as a close contact anybody?
Well, he is tested regularly, as you know. He was tested yesterday. He will be tested again soon. He's tested typically a couple of times a week.
Literally, I feel like deja vu. She has to feel it too. Come on, people, look at that face. That is the face of annoyance. Just bewilderment and annoyance. Just stop asking the stupid.
If he were a close contact, the only difference, or I don't even know that it would be a difference, would be a 5-day test 5 days after your contact. So
I laugh at her and feel sorry for her many times in one of these shows. And in her farewell tour, I'm watching the whole segments. Yes, we are watching the whole segments tonight. I apologize if you don't love Jen as much as I do, but I feel for her once in a while because they just ask stupid questions. Also, I laugh at her because she gets annoyed. Like, this is your job though. Like, you're making 6 figures. You can be better at your job.
okay, and if he is a close contact, that is what exactly he will do.
And so on the broader COVID question, looks like that bill is stalled now. What are the short-term consequences of not having new funding in place? Is there a risk that you can't proceed with previously announced funding, namely of Pfizer's pill Paxlovid? And when do you think the shipments of the monoclonal antibodies will run out? They were supposed to run out in May. You've been shipping fewer of them. How long will the cover last on the monoclonals without any money?
I may have to check on that specific component for you, Josh, and I'm happy to do that. I mean, what we do know is that by the end of June, the testing capacity will be at risk. Our testing capacity will be at risk of collapsing, at least from the federal government and what we can provide. We know that we can't buy any additional treatments beyond those that have already been paid for and contracted, of course, including preventative treatments for immunocompromised. Those treatments, as you know, often take 6 months to manufacture, so we'd also be losing out on supply that we intended to purchase for September through January. And of course, the uninsured fund is already closed. But I can certainly check on the next purchase of monoclonals and if we have any ability to purchase that as planned.
What's the difference if the bill passes 3 weeks from now versus having it had passed this week?
Well, we would be able to have the funding, hopefully, to reopen some of our uninsured programming. We'd be able to get ahead and plan ahead for purchases of testing to ensure we had testing capacity, to make sure we could place some orders for preventative treatments for the immunocompromised. It just delays the process. And as we know, they're going on a 2-week recess right now.
Hey, Jen, thanks, I appreciate it. I have a non-COVID question,
Sure.
I swear.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God, people, just learn. Like, these are supposed to be some of the best reporters in the job, right? They're not anchors. They're not the ones that are sitting at home making 30 million. They're supposed to be reporters. And they're supposed to be interested journalists, right? So why are they all asking stuff about freaking his exposure? Like, that's the only subject we're talking about today is his exposure to people. This is, again, yesterday's, but We're doing the Psaki farewell. I haven't been on in a couple days. I had mouth surgery. That's why I look all doped up, because I'm on painkillers. I've had surgery, some teeth pulled out, the whole thing. So I can't eat, low energy, all good shit. And I'm laughing at this stuff because I've already watched it once. But come on, John, this is just...
You can ask me a COVID question too. Go ahead.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I just want to be specific about tomorrow. Are folks who are attending going to be required to take any additional steps, other than it being outside and all that stuff, testing by senators, for example, or, distance kept by the president? Is there going to be anything above and beyond just being outside?
Not that I'm aware of, but it being outside is certainly an important component here. Typically, individuals who are going to be in close proximity, like on the stage or something, they would be tested, but there are protocols that are evaluated in a case-by-case as we have events.
And a question on Puerto Rico, on COVID
Okay.
before, right? There's a million people plus without power there. A lot of people criticizing that the federal government...
A million Americans without power there. Don't forget that Puerto Rico is America, because for some reason half of us don't seem to know that. I'm not sure how that gets lost in translation, but from English to English, somehow people lose that. I don't know why. Don't know how. That's our education system, though, right? American education system. Can't even tell Americans where America actually is. We also have American Samoa and Guam, everybody. That's your history lesson. That's your geography lesson, whatever you want to call it, please. Jeez.
There's not done enough to fix the grid there
Sure.
after recent hurricanes.
Puerto Rico is America. Puerto Rico is America.
Wonder what, is the president ready on this? Are there any actions that the president is planning to do there?
Sure. Let me check. I know we've provided a broad range and a significant amount of financial assistance, but let me check and see what the status is at this point in time.
Can I also ask you about the Amir Locke, the case involving Amir Locke
Sure.
and the officers that are not charged in that case? Is the president ready on that? And is there does he have any thoughts on the no-knock warrants? I think you addressed this in February a little bit, but I wonder if there's been any action or movement or further conversation.
Oh yeah, the whole police bullshit he does. Just remember, please remember, Biden said we need to fund the police, not defund the police. And New York City has a bigger police budget than everybody except for 12 countries' military budget. There's 12 countries that have a bigger budget for the military, being one of them, of course, us number one. But there's 12 countries that have bigger military budgets than New York's police budget. So he says we need to fund the police, Biden does. And the New York City police are more funded than all but 12 militaries. Okay.
Well, let me give you, so first, like so many across the nation, and obviously this news is a reminder of how we've all mourned the tragic death of Amir Locke, and our thoughts and prayers continue to be with his family. The President is committed, and of course he is aware of, and I would point you to the Department of Justice for any specifics about next legal actions, but the President is committed to ensuring fair, impartial, and effective policing, keeping our communities safe. Those goals go hand in hand, and we can achieve them in part by building trust between the police and communities they serve. So to go to your other questions, in September, the Attorney General issued a new policy imposing restrictions on the use of no-knock warrants, chokeholds, and restraints by federal agents. President Biden also continues to call on Congress to pass comprehensive police reform legislation, but since Republicans refuse to support the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, we are looking at additional steps we can take. We are continuing to look at them on executive action to advance police reform. Obviously something we put a pause on while that was being negotiated. I don't have an update on the timing of that, but that is something we are continuing to look at to build on, of course, the actions taken by the Department of Justice.
Hi, Jen. You noted that Vice President Kamala Harris is considered a close contact. CDC guidance says to wear a mask. Today she was presiding over the vote for Ketanji Brown Jackson and didn't wear a mask. I guess does the White House have a response to that? Was that a breach of protocol, or I guess what made it different that she did have to wear a mask?
I haven't seen. I'm obviously watched most parts of the vote, but I know that she was alone up kind of on the dais for the vast majority of that, and of course she has been wearing a mask otherwise. But beyond that, I haven't done any further analysis.
And then one more question, sort of on immigration.
Sure.
There are reports that there's an increased number of Ukrainian refugees heading to that are at the southern border, around 2,000 in Tijuana. I guess I was wondering, what are the administration's plans to kind of address a rise of Ukrainian refugees that might come to the southern border? The State Department hasn't really outlined the specifics on how they want to, address allowing 100,000 Ukrainian refugees to the U.S. So I guess, is there any other preparations that are being made?
This is so easy. And I know somebody on YouTube was talking about refugees like 2 hours ago, but this is when we're going to talk about it because this is when it's talked about. We talk about it when it's relevant. We have the conversation when it comes up, not randomly. That's how a show works. But yeah, so let's talk about immigration, right? Are we getting ready for 100,000 Ukrainians? That's like a show that they want to do. That's what they want to say. Are we getting ready for 100,000 refugees? How about Syrian refugees? How about Libyan refugees? How about Palestinian refugees? How about Nicaraguan refugees? All of these countries, Venezuelan, from Colombian, El Salvadorian, Peru, all these countries, we have massive hands in the problems that those nations are facing. So when poor people, when maybe even middle income people are fleeing these nations, they have issues. Rich people can leave anywhere and go anywhere. If you're a mega millionaire or billionaire, you can go anywhere at any time. No one's going to slow you down. You are going to move around with immigration, no problem. But middle income to low income people, any nation should be able to move into this. All right? And cheers, thanks for the follow. So any of these nations that we problem should be able to move into America. Not 100,000 Ukrainians. Whew. All right, thank you. So yeah, not only should it be 100,000 Ukrainians, but on the other hand of that, we have over 1 million empty homes right now. Why doesn't our banks just, why don't, as Americans, we say that a new policy is the bank's going to give those homes over to the government for the next year. And we're going to take those off the market for the next year. And we are going to give those to refugees from all these nations that we are destroying. Not just the nation of one country right now that is the topic of the day. Yemen, Saudi Arabia. I mean, not Saudi, but yeah, I mean, even Saudi Arabia, like Saudi Arabian people just got the right to, women just got the right to drive. They still need like permission to buy a car from like a man. So, there's other people that are looking to leave their situations, and a lot of them are leaving situations that we caused, and they're trying to move here because they know that the American government is not going to bomb America. They don't really know some of the situations they might be getting into. Some of our inner cities are a wee bit scary, but yeah. So there's my immigration rant. Appropriately timed. Look at that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So let's see what they have to say.
In addition to whatever expected rise of migrants coming to the border once Title 42 ends?
Sure. Well, I would say that we are still working through the policy process.
Thanks for
so
the
hopefully we'll
follow.
have more to say on soon about what specific mechanisms Ukrainians can apply who wish to come to the United States, even though we know the vast majority have made clear they would like to stay in neighboring countries, which is why we're providing the most humanitarian assistance of any country in the world to support those efforts that neighboring countries have undertaken to host refugees. There are very good questions I'm sure you have about family reunification, prioritization, and whether there would be prioritization for individuals who fear persecution and things along those lines. Those are all important questions that are being discussed. We are still implementing Title 42 at the border for anyone who comes to the border, and we're working toward implementation of the lifting of Title 42 next month, and we would apply the policy to everybody, but obviously coming from any country, but obviously there would be these programs, and we'd have more details before then for sure that Ukrainians who are.
We also, another thing that we don't talk about a lot is that with the explosion of Airbnb and other alternative apps, that there are tens, I believe around in that 10,000 area of small motels that have gone out of business. Small motels that have gone out of business. There's a program we could do pretty quickly. Take small rundown motels, have immigrant refugees come in, make money building and refurnishing these things and then live there for X amount of time. No rent since they refurbish them. When they're ready to move on, we leave these refurbished places under government control and use them for homeless. Not only do we have a refugee problem fixed, we're leaving these people with good jobs, good training, and then we have a homeless problem fixed as well. Oh my goodness. A progressive policy that could cost very, very little. Look at that, how easy policies are to come up with. Sorry, it's freaking just, oh my goodness. There's so many things that we could be doing better.
Eligible would be able to apply for. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I have two questions. The first one is
So
budget
many
day in
things we could be
Ottawa
doing
today,
better.
and up to $8 billion in new money will go to defense purpose, which will bring Canada's defense contribution to approximately 1.5% of the GDP, not yet to the 2%. Does the administration wish Canada would do more, considering the actual war in Ukraine?
Well, we applaud that increase, and we applaud Canada's efforts and support for us in standing up against the invasion of Ukraine by President Putin and the Russians, and they are an important partner and continue to be.
And my second question, it goes back to...
Oh, that was such a generic answer. Come on, Jen, give us something. Give us something. Give us something to be happy about. Can't be screaming Madden and, oh, that was so, disappointing.
The aid you detailed.
So he's definitely Canadian. He must be French Canadian. I live in Michigan half the year, and he is not a Quebec, or not a Quebec, not a Ontario. That's that Quebec French. I was trying to place the accent when he asked about Canada. Quebec.
At the beginning of the briefing, to the Russian military, all sorts of...
Ukrainian military.
Ukrainian military, of course, sorry. I just want to verify again, you refer to, there are requests coming to you, and you go through the list, and sometimes you need old Soviet equipment. Are the MiG-29s still in the list, and is the administration considering transferring those Polish planes to Ukraine?
Our policy has not changed, but other countries, of course, could make that determination and decide to do, and we certainly wouldn't stand in the way, but our policy has not changed. Go ahead.
When President Biden continued the pause on student loan payments or repayments, he said that pause will provide continued lifeline as we recover and rebuild from the pandemic. You said today you want to stop the spread of COVID. So my question is, if we're still recovering from the pandemic, why then is Title 42 going to be relifted? Is there a revision or a revisit that you can look at that? And have we just recovered from the border then? What does that mean?
Let me see if I can unpack a few things in there.
Oh, yeah. Gonna miss her. Gonna miss her. Jen is definitely, Sean Spicer was fantastic. Jen was great. It's only gonna be a step down from this mile of entertainment packed into the White House briefings.
First, on the announcement about the extension of student loan pause,
Beautiful.
the student loan pause, what I said yesterday is also that what we look at is the impact of the pandemic on the economic recovery. And even though the economy is very strong, look at the UI data from today, look at the jobs data from last Friday, we certainly know that costs are continuing to impact people across the country, including students who have or former students who have student loan payments they need to make. And the president's going to look for every way he can lower costs for the American people, whether that is the family fix that he announced with former President Obama earlier this week, or the announcement about the pause on student loan payments. The decision about Title 42 is a decision made by the CDC, a public health decision. It's not an immigration authority or policy. It's a public health decision. And we respect the authority given to them by Congress to make that determination.
The president said that sanctions were not a deterrent on Russia going into Ukraine. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is saying that the U.S. would use all its sanction tools should China move towards Taiwan. So is that message a deterrent or not?
Well, we have sanctioned China in the past, as you know, for human rights abuses, and we have sanctioned a range of countries, certainly around the world. I would say
We throw sanctions around like it's pancakes, yo. And again, my take is sanctions are war. So that is, but again, sanctions are only meant to hurt the medium and lower incomes. It's meant to be a news blip on their country's news, their news cycles. So it's like U.S. sanctioned us, and then when like toilet paper like disappears or rises or something, they're supposed to accredit that and say, oh, our leaders aren't working with the powerhouse of America, and it's supposed to work its way up really, but it doesn't, and it just puts a tax on poor people in other countries.
sanctions have a
End all sanctions is of course, my firm belief. End all sanctions.
Range of purposes, including putting consequences in place, and where we are as it relates to the war in Ukraine is also making.
Russia needs to end their little part of the war in Ukraine. We need to end all sanctions, including Russia, including Venezuela, including North Korea. And then we can come to the peace table and talk. All missiles being fired, shot, stopped. All sanctions lifted, done. And then we can come to the peace talks and actually have a negotiation.
Much more difficult for President Putin to fund this war, and that is a huge priority to us. I don't have any predictions about future sanctions. I would leave that at the comments of the Treasury Secretary.
Given how intertwined our economies are, could we really do sanctions on China like we are?
That is an assessment that the Department of Treasury would have to make, but I don't have a prediction beyond what the Secretary of Treasury said. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. This week you've been critical of Republicans trying to add amendment votes onto the COVID funding bill. Specifically regarding Title 42. Yesterday you said they decided to move the goalposts and that the White House is questioning whether Republicans are acting in good faith or if they're just playing politics. But Democratic Senators Mark Kelly, Kristen Sinema, Joe Manchin, Maggie Hassan, and John Tester are joining Republicans in this effort. Does the White House have the same criticism we've heard about Republicans? Does that apply to these Democratic senators as well?
Look, regardless of who's standing against this, our larger point here is if we do not have treatments, vaccines, or tests that the American people need, Americans will die from COVID, and whether they support or oppose the administration on immigration or child care.
The dogs sleep running and barking and chasing something. It's makes me smile. So if I smile randomly, I apologize for the
Care environmental rules, anybody. And so our point is not political. The vast majority of people who are opposing this moving forward are Republicans. That is a fact. But our point here is that there is an urgency to move forward. We can have a range of debates about a range of issues we have disagreements on. That's fine. Immigration, childcare, environmental rules, we welcome that. By the way, the president put forward an immigration bill his first day in office. If Republicans want to work on immigration, come on down to the White House. We're happy to work with you on it. But right now, this is a game of politics, and we need to get this funding. Otherwise, people in the country are going to die. That's our larger point.
And a quick follow-up on Vice President Harris.
Yeah.
She was a close contact. Tomorrow, during the event, or if there's any reception behind the scenes, will she be required to wear a mask indoors?
She'll follow CDC protocols in any other events. Go ahead.
The congressional pool vote from.
She says that so often. She should just have a button for it. Hello, enemy. What news about Russia? Sorry if I'm your enemy. I don't mean to be anybody's enemy. I try to be for anybody who's working class. I'm your enemy if you're a billionaire and you just want to extract wealth. So, what news about our Russia? I don't know. Mostly doing White House press briefings today. Do I have anything on Russia today? Don't have anything specific on Russia, just mostly getting mad at the press briefings. John Kirby? I do not know what that is. We want to see the president, how Mr. Russia, Vladimir Putin, and the Russian army will lose this battle on the territory of Ukraine, John Kirby. You need this war? I don't know. I'm anti-war. I'm anti-war, so I don't want this or need this war. I have zero desire for war. I am big time anti-war.
From the confirmation vote today, tells us that Senator Rand Paul cast his vote from the GOP cloakroom. He was in casual clothes without a suit jacket or tie, so unable to come onto the floor. The reports, I think, 2 other Republican senators may have done similar. Is that an appropriate way to vote on a historic occasion like this?
I will tell you, I'm not spending a lot of time, nor is the president, thinking about the dress code of Rand Paul today. We're thinking about the historic confirmation.
That's a useless question again. Like, seriously, these guys, they don't even report. It's supposed to be the top of our freaking journalists here. Here in America, these are supposed to be the journalists, and they're asking just asinine, stupid questions about close proximity and COVID and what people were wearing to a freaking here to a vote
Of an
the day before they go on vacation, like the day or two before they go on vacation for 2 weeks.
eminently qualified black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. Not really worried about his khakis.
If I may as well, we've enjoyed your shout-outs to members of your team. I wonder if this means you're now working on notice?
I'm sorry, what?
It was yesterday. Oh, that was such a good question. She is doing a roll call lately.
Whether you're now, is that an American phrase? Whether you're now working on notice?
I think I don't know that it's an American phrase. I am. No, I love the Britishness and the accent, not to put you on notice of sort. Look, I think it is simply a reflection of my appreciation for the incredible people on my team that I get to work with every day. I've shouted them out in the past before. I've presented them with sashes to wear, all sorts of embarrassing things, and I think working in the White House, just like being a reporter, people think you have glamorous setups back there. I'm here to confirm that is not the case, but our team works their tails off. There's a lot going on, and it's just simply an effort to recognize that. I have nothing to announce about. Yeah. Yes.
What is this administration response to Israel for their role as mediator in this Russia-Ukraine crisis? And I have a follow-up question.
Okay. Well, we certainly support the efforts of a range of leaders who are hoping to play a diplomatic role here. And there are a number of leaders around the world who have also had engagements with Russians and engagements with the Ukrainians. And we just ask that they all engage closely with Ukrainians as well.
Okay. To help Europe develop energy independence from Russia, will the Biden administration drop its opposition to the EU East Med pipeline being developed by Israel, Cyprus, and Greece?
Look, I think there's going to be decisions made by European leaders about how to reduce their any level of dependence they have on Russian oil. You've seen a number of leaders this week announce their intention to ban oil imports from Russia, but I would remind you that pipelines are a means of moving oil. It's not.
Pipelines are a means of moving oil, and we have a very vested interest on where those pipelines go and how they move that said oil, because oil runs our government. That's something she'll never say. That's something she should say, but she'll never say.
Gas and use.
That was Wednesdays, which we will watch at the end of the show tonight. We will not do that right now. Right now, I wanted to move on. Oop. Or let's have a discussion. Yeah. And I'm guessing you were Russian, Molto? That's what it sounds like, I'm guessing. You were Russian? And if you know of any, I mean, I prefer independent journalists. So I didn't dig anything up. She has a couple little clips, but people like Ava Bartlett, Vanessa Beeley, they do really good objective news, independent news. Abby Martin does really good stuff in Central America, as well as Ben Norton. So yeah, there's independent journalists that do good stuff. Not necessarily mainstream media here. And yeah, mainstream media is a propaganda machine for oil, for war, for the weapons contractors, and that's all Western civilization, right? That's the UK, that's France, that's Australia, that's Germany. All of our corporate media is all run to fund corporations. It's all, yeah, it's all a ploy, really. So this is, here, let's put this on mute. This is Jamal Thomas. He was on Radio Sputnik. He is a independent news person. He does a lot of different radio and such, but this is going to be strictly his Radio Sputnik show. I do not believe I can show people who have been deleted on YouTube. So, YouTube, I apologize. I have dropped the link several times. If you happen to be following me on YouTube, I will only be doing this on Twitch from here on out. I have to end the stream because they don't let you show deleted people. Good night. Twitch.